And look at that. Live stream is up. Hi, everybody. It is the pre-show. We'll be getting started shortly with the SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group if I can untangle my headphones. This is the real key to everything else that happens today is the untangling of the headphones. It's a time-honored tradition on the study group. You normally don't get to see this part, but I'm running a few minutes behind. Hey, chat room. Hey, everybody. Oh, see, we're also tangled here. That's good. Put this up here. Oh, happy Wednesday, everybody. Middle of the week. We got a chat up. We got the live stream running. Let's look at our stream is healthy. That all looks good. I've now got my headphones on so I can hear myself and you, most importantly, during the second hour. Let's put headphones down here. I think we've got recordings going here. There we go. Recordings are going up there. That looks good too. Let's see if I can clear my throat out a bit. It's a little rough around the edges there, isn't it? I don't know what happened. We've got, do I need this here? I think this is what we need. I think we're in pretty good shape. Those look good. This looks good. Cameras look good. All right. I think we're in pretty good shape. I don't remember any of the questions on the quiz, though. So we're going to have to figure out what those are. There's the quiz. You should see it on your side. We'll talk about all of that in a moment. But all that looks ready to go. We can put this over here. This can go down over there. Podcast audio has been done. We've got... This is up. I think we're in really good shape. Oh, you know what I haven't done is bring the chat room over so I can see it better. So let's bring the chat room over here. And let's put the video over there. Much better. Hi, chat room. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. We've got study group starts in a few minutes. This is not the study group. So if you're watching this on the replay or you're here live for the first time, you'll notice there's not a lot going on. Well, we aren't doing anything yet. I'm just sort of getting things together on my side. And in about 7 minutes, just under, we will begin the study group. So if you're on the replay, you can, and you're on YouTube, you can click the video comments. In the video description is a timestamp. You can jump straight ahead. Or you can simply hang out here. Hello, Ontario. Tons of snow. That's not good. That's not good. I was just, I went to Disney World. So I'm, things are great here. We're running around our shorts and our t-shirts. Florida's in pretty good shape for the spring. But now we're back. Now we are back here and shooting tons of video this week. I put new videos out today. There's just tons of video right now. If you're studying for the 501, is this group beneficial? To some degree, although many of the questions we cover, maybe half of them are 601 only. And I really think that's because the 601 exam objectives are so different than the 501 that only half of the 501 material made it over to the 601. So that's part of the reason for that. Now we have 3 years plus of 501 video replays you could go through. So those would be the most beneficial to you. But the after show was still valid, though. The after show is still a good one. I didn't bring where's my coffee? It's over here. This does nobody any good. if it's nowhere within this. Okay. The questions. There you go. That's where you go. I should just have that up all the time. There's your question answer page. That helps. Is all 501 material within the 601? It is not. Only half of the 501 material is in the 601. And then the 601 is even more material on top of that. So it is, it's only half. So if you're studying for the 501, do not study from 601 materials. It'll half of the material is worthless to you. They're teaching you half of the material you would be going through would never be asked on your 501 exam. Vice versa, if you are studying for the 601, do not study from 501 materials. You're getting less than half of what you need to be able to pass this exam. So always, always study from materials that match the version of the exam that you're going to take. So that's the important part. In Miles' chat room, got your 501 in February, locked it in. Congratulations. Still here to learn something new, and we will. This is always a good place to go through some new things. But so good that you were able to get that 501 before it retires in July. I've got a frog in my throat. A frog is there. I think we're getting rid of it. We're working it out. It'll be gone by the second hour, right? All right, if you're writing your exam the 14th of May, you got just less than a month. That's still pretty good. I guess it would depend on how long you've already been studying. It generally takes about 3 months on average for most people. So close to retirement, would it be worth it to try to do the 501 or better to go 601? That's really up to you. We are still in that 3-month window for Security Plus. So I said on average it's 3 months. Well, we're in the middle of April, into sort of endish of April, May, June, July. There's 3 months. So if you are working towards that, if you are working towards a Security Plus and you really, really, really want to take that 501 exam because of all of the advantages it has, or it's much easier to take and pass than the 601. So that would be a very good reason to push the 501. The problem, of course, is if you are studying for the 501, you have to pass that by July 31st. Otherwise, everything shifts to the 601, and only half of what you studied is now applicable to the 601 exam. So there's your balancing act. The 601 is a much bigger exam. It's 30% larger. So there's more things you have to know for the 601. It is a harder exam to study for because there's more content. I wouldn't say harder, but certainly larger to study for. I think the difficulty level is identical. The problem is your difficulty level is now associated with how much you have to know. So that does add a little bit more study time, I guess, to it. Can I skip Network Plus and go straight to Security Plus if you really want, you want to get into cybersecurity? Well, the problem is getting an entry-level position in cybersecurity is rare. It is few and far between. There's not a lot of entry-level positions. So going after Security Plus is sort of like saying, I'm really pushing to be the CEO of Microsoft. I know I just got out of college, but that's the job I know I want. So do I really need to do this other stuff? Can I just jump to sort of the Harvard School of Business and get a master's degree in business administration? And really, should I just start there? And then when I get out of school, I'll be ready to be the CEO of Microsoft? Well, no. I have to start lower in the food chain. Kind of work your way up from there. Well, we got, it's top of the hour, everybody. And let's see if my throat's going to make it. What is going on? But it is time for a live stream, so let's get at least some things together. If that's not going to happen, this next thing will, and here we go. We are going in just a second. I have to get things up on my screen, which I have not done. Now we're ready. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2021 Professor Messer SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. We have so much to go through in this first hour where I will be asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And after that first hour is over, I open up the phone lines and you can ask any questions you would like. This is what we do every month. So feel free to come back by every month. We do these live streams and we have all the replays available on the YouTube side as well. The way that you will be able to participate today is you can pop open a new browser window and go to this link, professormesser.com/QA. That is the link that will have a question waiting for you on the screen, sitting right there, available. I've got a question up right now. We're going to go through it in just a moment. There's also an app that you can get for your mobile device. It is called the Socrative Student app. Just download that from your favorite app store. It will ask you for a room name, however. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. That's the important part. So that's where you want to focus on, is understanding where you can go to get that question. And I have a question waiting for you right now. And it is this question, which is a question from last month. So this is one that absolutely you should remember if you were here last month. So let's see if you do. The question asks, which of these features is available when using MAM, M-A-M? And I have a number of options available. Is it automated failover, an enterprise app catalog, encrypted tunnels, multiple authentication factors, or FDE? Now, if you think you know the answer, you go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. As always, we don't answer in the chat room. We don't have hints in the chat room. We answer online at that link, professormesser.com/QA, and we will come back to that question in just a moment. First, I want to thank you for being here and welcome. We do one of these study groups once a month, and this one is for Security Plus. We, of course, have new videos coming out all the time for the latest SY0-601 exam. I posted 5 new videos just this morning. And so there's just constant videos being edited and created. And this entire course will probably be done here in the upcoming weeks. So we're sort of near the end of creating all of the video content for this particular course, which is great. If you'd like to keep track of when these videos are posted, go to professormesser.com/YouTube, subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you can be notified. Also have weekly pop quiz questions for the SY0-601. Those are posted on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter, and they're available on Instagram if you like your questions with a pretty picture to go along with them. We're going to talk about the SY0-601 questions today, but right now you can take one of 2 different exams. You could take the SY0-501 exam. That was an exam that was released on October the 4th of 2017, and it retires on July 31st of 2021. So it's coming up for retirement in just over 3 months from now. So 3 months in a week or 2. Now, if you want to take the SY0-501, you've been studying for the 501, you've been working on your 501, keep doing that because you have plenty of time to take this exam and pass it before it's retired. And the moment you pass the exam, you are certified for 3 years, regardless of what they do with this set of questions. The SY0-501 refers to the version of questions that they ask you on the exam. So that's great. If you've already been studying, keep doing that. Pass that 501, get Security Plus certified. There's also the SY0-601. This was released in November, which means its estimated retirement's May 2024 sometime. It's forever. So this is where you really do find a lot of flexibility, and you can choose whichever one of these you would like to take. It doesn't matter which one you take. When you pass your exam, you're Security Plus certified. There is no Security Plus 501 certified or Security Plus 601 certified. CompTIA doesn't designate them that way. You are simply Security Plus certified. In fact, you'll probably never have to take the Security Plus exam again. You'll simply renew your certification every 3 years. I think you should take the 501 while you can, because it is an easier exam to study for. There's much more study materials available out there on the market. It is a much smaller exam to study for. The 601 is much larger in scope. And that's an important part of this, is knowing which one of these to take. But timing may be the issue. And it may be that you're just not going to be able to pass this by July, so you take the 601. You can decide which one you'd like to take. I did a comparison of both of these at professormesser.link/601wait. You're more than welcome to have a look through that. This exam, regardless of which one you take, a single exam, one exam, 90 minutes long. You could get a maximum of 90 questions on the exam. You probably would get fewer than 90, but you could get as many as 90. The scale on the exam is from 100 to 900, and you have to score 750. That's a little odd, isn't it? Yes, it is. But that's the way it works, so that's the one you'll need to concentrate on. There's no way to know how many questions to get right or wrong. Each question is worth a different number of points. Just do your best and hope it comes out to be 750. The exam itself is a combination of multiple choice and performance-based questions, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Also, keep in mind that we have our Success Bundle available for the 501. The Success Bundle for the 601 is coming shortly in the next month or so. You'll see one of those available. If you are studying for the 501, though, this package has everything I offer in it. It has all of my videos that you can download and put on your mobile device. It has all of the video content in audio MP3 format. It has my course notes. It has my practice exams. It has my Exam Hacks ebook, which up until now you could only get in the Success Bundle. But I'm going to tell you in a moment how you could also get it another way as well. And you get special Q&A access to this study group and more. You can find out about it at professormesser.com/501SB. There are also some questions on the exam or questions from our study groups that I have available to help you study for your exam. That's the Take 10 Challenge at professormesser.com/take10. There's a number of questions there for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus that can help you out, at least the 501 Security Plus. Figure out the details of that. We've also got a podcast version of this available. You can subscribe to it at professormesser.com/podcast. There's also a video replay of this available immediately afterwards on YouTube. In fact, if you go to YouTube tomorrow and have a look, you'll notice that there are timestamps available on the video, so you can jump exactly to what you would like to find in that video. It's a quick way to find the question, the answer, or perhaps a call-in in the second hour that some people will do. Find that at professormesser.com/YouTube. I also, this is new, I mentioned that my Exam Hacks ebook is only available on bundled with my Success Bundle. But one of the things that you will find on my website that is new since last month, those of you that only attend my study groups may have no idea, that you can now get discounted vouchers from the Professor Messer website. You go to professormesser.com/vouchers. These are vouchers that I have that are discounted, so you're not paying full price. Never pay full price for your vouchers. Don't go to the CompTIA site and register for your exam and pay the full amount of money. You want to go to professormesser.com/vouchers and buy a discounted voucher. I also have links there that if you are a college student, you get a significantly discounted set of vouchers. You don't get those from me, but there's a link on that page as well that will take you there. This means that you can get your A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. If there's others that you think maybe I should put on there, maybe I will. Add some others to that website as well so you can get other vouchers for this. What's nice about this, because you could get discounted vouchers at other sites too, but what you cannot get at other sites is my Exam Hacks ebook. And if you purchase a voucher from the Professor Messer website, I'll throw in the Exam Hacks ebook for free. This is a set of life hacks for taking CompTIA exams. How do you study for these exams? What are some of the things you should go through? During the exam, what are some tips and tricks that might get you some extra points on the exam? And then if you don't pass the exam, I have some tips in there on how you can pass the second time through. So make sure you look through that. Plus, you're going to need a voucher anyway. Why not get it from my website? It also helps support what we're doing on our site. And of course, you get a discounted voucher along with it. You can find out more at professormesser.com/vouchers. And we're very excited to be able to offer that at all. It's the first time we've ever been able to offer a direct voucher discount on the Professor Messer website. Can you believe that? So it's great that it's there. Please take advantage of it and see what's available there. Now let's go back to that question I asked earlier. Which of these features is available when using MAM? Is it automated failover, an enterprise app catalog, encrypted tunnels, multiple authentication factors, and FDE? Of those, which could it possibly be? If we look at how you answered, 45% of you said multiple authentication factors. We have 38% that said enterprise app catalog, and then single digits for everything else. We have 8% said encrypted tunnels, 6% said FDE, which would be full disk encryption. 3% of you said automated failover. Well, this definitely is a 601 question, isn't it? That MAM is probably not something you've run into before. And if you've been studying for your 601, then you know that is the mobile application management. This is a way to manage what applications people can access on their mobile devices. So this is something that has to be very carefully managed in your environment as well. This is one that, to be able to do it the right way, we need to offer a list of available applications to our users. And so we would create within our own organization an app catalog that they can simply go to, sort of like the App Store, except it's our own private app store. And then they can choose what apps to load on their device because those apps are acceptable and work great in the organization. You can also monitor application usage from the mobile app manager and wipe application data from there. So this is a way to really manage apps on your mobile device, which means it would not have anything to do with multiple authentication factors. That's not what MAM is. That M for I threw that multiple to see if that would catch a few folks, and it did, 46% of you. The actual answers, 138% of you chose Enterprise App Catalog. That's what you would do with a mobile application management tool. So that would be very, very useful if you were going through that. And there's another term and another technology that you've now learned that you didn't know before, and one that certainly could come up on your 601 exam. Let's now shift gears. Now that we're in, we can get into the questions and the answers. We know what those particular questions and answers happen to be. We can get into our system and answer them online. Now let's do another type of question. That was a multiple choice-based question. We can choose any one of those possible answers. You can even guess. Maybe you'll get some free points if you don't know the answer. But there's a number of questions you're going to get at the beginning of your exam that are not multiple choice-based questions. They are performance-based questions, which in CompTIA's terms means they are anything but multiple choice. They could be fill in the blank. They could be matching. They could be putting things in a particular order. They could be a drag and drop. It might be a scenario where you have to put things or order things in a particular place on the screen. You just don't know exactly what they're going to be. So during the beginning of our study groups, I like to do a performance-based question to start off with. And I have one for you that is a matching question with a little bit of a CompTIA twist to it. I'll show you what I mean by that. Here is the question that asks, match the technology. And I have I have 7 technologies, and I have 4 descriptions of those technologies. So let's step through each one of these to be able to see that. The first one is a credit card number is replaced with a single-use number. The second is an anti-malware scan did not identify a Trojan horse. The third is a vulnerable server is used as a proxy to attack other systems. And fourth is visitors to a known malicious site are redirected to a safe server. And I have 7 different technologies here, which means there's not going to be a one-to-one. We're going to have some left over at the end. Those are normalization, tokenization, sinkhole, XAAS, false negative, camouflage, and pivoting. All of these are definitely 601-ish in some of these technologies there that are there. Not all of them are 601 specific, but many of them are. So they are, again, normalization, tokenization, sinkhole, XAAS, false negative, camouflage, and pivoting. And for those of you listening in, I'm going to go through the 4 descriptions again. The first is a credit card number is replaced with a single-use number. The second is an anti-malware scan did not identify a Trojan horse. The third is a vulnerable server is used as a proxy to attack other systems. And the last one is visitors to a known malicious site are redirected to a safe server. Now, if you think you know the answers, just plug them into the system. If you think they're all in order already, you could say 1A, 2B, 3C, and 4D, and you'd be done. That is not the right answer, but you could do that. Notice if you do that, there's 3 answers that are left over, which is also very similar to how the actual exam works. They don't often give you 1-to-1. They often give you a few to many to be able to do that. So if you think you know the answer, lock in your answer at professormester.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll be able to figure all of this out. This also makes it harder because you can't really, you can sort of use the method of taking an answer that you know is wrong and throwing it out. The problem is you still have 6 other answers left over. So that's a challenge to have those things there. So we'll have to see what we think it might be once we get there. Because now we have some left over, it's hard to do a 1-to-1. It's hard to mix them up and kind of get the right perfect match of these. And that's by design, by the way. You'll see this on the exam as well, is they give you a different number to match from. And so you have some left over at the end. And that's intentional. It makes the questions harder to answer. You really have to know the answers to be able to lock them in, or at least have a very, very good familiarity with the topics to be able to lock them in that way. And that's one you should also think about if you're working on your exam and working towards that. Those are important ones to know. I'm watching as folks are locking in their answers now. A number of you have already put answers in here. So some of these are you're figuring it out. You're trying to piece them through. Let's step through each one of these and see where we would match them. So let's look at all 4 of these technologies. And let's start with the first one, which is a credit card number is replaced with a single-use number. And if you look at the list of available options, then you should have chosen B, tokenization. If you use some type, you're paying for things using your mobile phone or using your watch with our connectionless payment systems that everybody rolled out so quickly, that's a very safe way. It's much safer to do that than to use an actual credit card, because the information you're sending through the network is not your credit card number. It's a token of your credit card number. And if somebody somebody captured that data, somebody captured that transaction and tried to reuse that number, it wouldn't work. It's a one-time use number. So whenever you have the ability to pay for something with your phone, with your watch, it's safer. It's a great way to pay for things. So tokenization, what does that? And I've got the video on tokenization I have really takes you through how does that work? And I take you through each step of setting up and how the tokens are created and then how they're used. And you'll see that in the animation. Second on our list is an anti-malware scan did not identify a Trojan horse, which sounds very bad. That's not good. An anti-malware scan didn't identify a Trojan horse. That's a false negative, which means we got a negative from that. Nope, nothing here that's bad. Nope, we're letting it go by. But the problem is that you really do want to find the malware when it's coming through. So if it doesn't find the malware, then that's a false negative. You're not able to really identify things that are bad on your network. So false negatives was the answer. Third on our list, a vulnerable server is used as a proxy to attack other systems. That would be pivoting. We are pivoting to gain access to one system, and once we gain that foothold, we can now pivot to other systems that may be on the inside of the network. Hard part is often getting into the inside of the network, and very often, unfortunately, even today, the inside of our network is pretty open. We're trying to shore that up in many cases, but there's a lot of ability to hop around once you get inside. So why not get into one system and then I can jump around from there? That is pivoting. And fourth on our list, visitors to a known malicious site are redirected to a safe server. An easy way to do this is with a sinkhole. You would actually capture someone trying to go to that site. This is commonly done on a firewall or a proxy. These days, most commonly a firewall. And that firewall, instead of allowing you to go to that actual IP address, it effectively does a network address translation. It changes the destination IP to, instead of going to the bad destination IP, we will send you to a good destination IP instead. What's great about that is now that you've sent somebody to the sinkhole, because they're not really going to the service they thought they were going to, now they go to the sinkhole, and now we can run a report that shows everybody in the last day that visited that sinkhole IP address. Now we suspect that all of those systems are infected. And we can now go fix those systems. We can now remediate and get the problem resolved on those systems. An easy way to find those. Well, this means we had some left over at the end of this. We didn't use A, normalization. We didn't use D, XAAS, and we didn't use F, camouflage. Normalization, in the terms that we use, there's different terms associated with normalization, but normalization, this term, is how we interpret and fix any type of incoming input into an application. So you're evaluating the input, you're making sure somebody's putting a credit card number that really does match credit card numbers, and that if it doesn't, you can normalize that data so that it does, especially if people put dashes in between or spaces in between. Let's normalize that so we can put it into our application. We also have XAAS, which is quite literally everything as a service. Everything. Everything is a service. But why not? We have software as a service, gaming as a service, services as a service. The idea between XAAS is that you could take an IT department and quite literally find a third-party service for whatever that function is. So if there is server management as a service. What about database administration? Database administration as a service. What about redundant hardware? You've got infrastructure as a service. So that's the idea. The idea is that you can take anything you're doing and make it a service. And that's what everything as a service is about. And lastly is camouflage. Camouflage, very similar. This is a physical form of security where you might have your data center in a building that is in an area, but you don't put a sign on the building. You don't say that it's a data center. You just let everybody think that it's just a normal warehouse that's there. This happens a lot. If you were to look at the outside of the NAP that's in downtown Miami, it just looks like another big building with no windows. If you look at, there are a number of data centers I've been to that look like a regular office building. And it doesn't have the name of the company in the front, it just has the address. So that's one of those that you might run into. But those three were not covered in that list. Again, credit card number replaced with a single-use number is tokenization. Anti-malware scan did not identify a Trojan horse as a false negative. A vulnerable server used as a proxy to attack other systems is pivoting, and visitors to a known malicious site are redirected to a safe server or to just another IP address. That's a sinkhole. That is how you would use it. It really does make for these different terms. There's a lot of new terms in the 601. I tried to put many of those new terms in here so that you could get a little more accustomed to what those happen to be. And also get accustomed to the matching process, because the matching process is one that certainly is different on the CompTIA exams. It's not always a one-to-one. It's often rarely a one-to-one. So that's what you would run into in that particular case. All of those. So hopefully you got those right. If you didn't, make sure you make a note of those. Go back to your exam objectives. Go back to the videos associated with those topics. You would absolutely be able to use those too. Let's now shift gears. Let's go back to a multiple choice-based question. I've got one for you now about cloud. Cloud's a big thing on the 601 exam, right? This question asks, let me click it on my side. A security engineer would like to connect a private cloud subnet to other cloud services. Which of the following would be the best choice? Would that be a default route, an SSL VPN, a VPC gateway, a container, or WPA3. A security engineer would like to connect a private cloud subnet to other cloud services. Which of the following would be the best choice? Would it be default route, SSL VPN, VPC gateway, container, or WPA3? Those are your 5 options. If you think you know the answer, your link's at the bottom of the screen, professormesser.com/QA. You can answer it online. Please don't answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room to be able to do that. That's one of the things that we are doing with the 601 is there is another chunk of cloud-based. Obviously, cloud has continued to increase in popularity. Every organization you walk into will have cloud services. They're working hard to expand on those cloud services, to make those cloud services more efficient, to automate those cloud services, to make them, to change their applications to better use the cloud architectures. There's a lot happening there. So, of course, you're going to need to protect those. There needs to be security around those. And that's one of the other areas of emphasis on the 601 exam. So there's a little cloud, of course, on the 501. It's not that we suddenly added all this cloud content. And quite honestly, it's not tons of information that you would have to know to be able to know the cloud content. But there is a good chunk of it on the exam. I posted even today, the 5 videos I posted today are all cloud services or security in the cloud videos. So it was that entire section, 3.8, I think, 3.6, one of those. Check your exam objectives. They all blend together for me right now. So that's really the difference in all of these. Hopefully you're familiar with this topic. It is a good one. And being able to know what it is, hopefully you're familiar with all of these technologies because all of these answers are things you should know from the exam objectives. Let's see how you did with this one. A security engineer would like to connect a private cloud subnet to other cloud services. Which of the following would be the best choice? Would that be default route, SSL VPN, VPC gateway, container, and WPA3? Which one would it be? Let's see how you answered. I'll click show results. 62% of you said you would use a VPC gateway, whatever that is. We'll talk about that in a moment. 29% of you said you would use an SSL VPN. All right. 3% said container. 3% also said WPA3. And then 2% said default route. So effectively a 3-way tie for third. It looks like we're really fighting between the 63% that said VPC gateway and the 28% that said SSL VPN. A VPC is a virtual private cloud. It's an entity. It's a grouping of application instance devices in the cloud that we are put together, these sets of subnets that all talk to each other, and that is our virtual private cloud. Nobody can really access that. We can build it out. Even though it's on the Amazon cloud, it's a private subnet. You can't access that subnet from the internet. Also, that device can't talk out from that subnet because it's a private IP address. You can't talk to the internet over that. So how are you going to connect to that particular area, the particular grouping of applications, if you can't normally access it from the internet? Well, you're going to need to create some type of gateway into it, and that would be a VPC endpoint. This is sort of the normal connection for a public network setup. So you got some public services on a public cloud, and then they have a virtual private cloud internet gateway that you would use to then connect to the internet. So that's sort of a normal connection because we're using public IP addresses. But here's our private subnet. And notice we're using our internal IP addresses, our private subnetting scheme. You can't access your cloud storage from there because there's no way to get there. So what you need to add is a VPC endpoint that allows those two devices on my storage network and on my private subnet to be able to communicate in and out. It's effectively providing you with a connectivity option for everyone being able to do that. A VPC endpoint is the way to make that happen. So having that VPC gateway is exactly what you would use. The 64% of you that chose C got that one absolutely right because it's sort of an automated process. We don't have to start any extra software. We don't have to deploy any extra software. There's nothing more we would need to put in someone's workstations. We just need to connect a private cloud subnet to other cloud services. Probably wouldn't be an SSL VPN to do that because SSL VPNs are usually endpoint VPNs. That's the ones that we're using on our local machines. So this is a private cloud subnet talking to other cloud services. Probably not going to use SSL VPN for that. I guess we could say it might use IPsec if we wanted to, but that wasn't an option. So that's not what we'd use for that case. Would not be a default route. That's a route we would use for IP subnetting. These are private IP addresses. We cannot route out to the internet with our private IP addresses, even with default routes. It'll just drop them. Won't allow any of that communication, any of that traffic. Would not be containers, which of course is a way to compartmentalize and in many ways virtualize the application part of our application instances without having to have separate virtual machines. We also have a WPA3, which is a wireless encryption standard. So that's not what we would use either. This has nothing to do with wireless encryption. The only answer here that would really be the best choice is your VPC gateway. It's this picture right here. It's this device that we stuck right on these pieces of it. That endpoint would be the one that we would use. That's one that really does come in handy if you're building out these private networks, and one you should absolutely be familiar with when using it. If you've gone through this and you're watching this video and you're thinking, I need some way to easily move around from place to place. I mentioned earlier that you can watch this on the YouTube side. The YouTube video description has timestamps in here. My marketing manager, Lori, is the one that creates the timestamps. So for those of you in the chat room, hi, Lori. She's watching the replay of this. And if you're someone who really likes those timestamps being there, feel free to say hello to Lori in the chat room because she does work hard to get those done. You can go back years now over these videos and get these timestamps, and she watches that live chat as it goes by when she is putting those timestamps in. So it's anything else you need from Lori, just ask her right now. She's watching. She'll be able to put that in there for you. Let's do another question. Next question I have is, an endpoint security client has identified a suspicious application and moved the file to a safe area. Which of the following would describe this activity? Would it be an approval list, a hash identification, a quarantine, a digital signature, or a block list? An endpoint security client has identified a suspicious application and moved the file to a safe area. Which of the following would describe this activity? Would it be an approval list, a hash identification, a quarantine, a digital signature, or a block list? That's what you want to lock in. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. Please, no answers in the chat room. As people commonly ask in the chat when I mention Lori is, how do you spell her name? I don't know. I've never asked her. I'm going to have to, she's only worked here for years. So I don't know. It's got to be one of those, right? So I'm sure she'll be able to figure it out as it goes by. It's not that important. We'll have to find out. It's a mystery to all of us. Perhaps I'll ask her someday. Maybe she'll be watching this and wondering, how does he not know? I've been working for him for years. He signs my paychecks. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever even noticed. Is that true? I do know how to spell her name. That's for those of you who are wondering is he being legitimate there? Does he? No, I do know how to spell her name. Let's see if you know how to go through endpoint security client management. So we will figure it out as we go through all of this. An endpoint security client has identified a suspicious application and moved the file to a safe area. Which of the following would describe this activity? Would it be an approval list, a hash identification, a quarantine, a digital signature, or a block list? Let's see how you answered this one. 94% of you have had this problem because it has taken your malicious software and stuck it in quarantine. And there it sits. So that nothing else can access it. The quarantine area is a special protected area. It's not going to allow you to execute applications from that area. It's going to put all the bad stuff it finds into that particular area of your storage device. And that is where you would then go into your management of your client, your endpoint security client. And you would, of course, be able to have a look at what it found, see if it really is something that's suspicious. If it is, you can then submit it or remove it. If it's not, you could put it back in your system and keep going through that. So you've got options there to be able to do that. Making sure that you're able to quarantine that information is an important part of this. There is a description of this in my video 4.4. Technically, I don't think I've got that uploaded yet, but I did shoot the video. 4.4, which does talk about quarantine. So anything that is suspicious can be moved to that safe area. That is your quarantine system, and that is the right answer. If you answered C, quarantine, got it absolutely right. Now, it would not be a block list. Simply moving a file to a safe area does not create a block list. A block list stops the application from working. So, for example, having a bad list on your system. And if anybody goes to this website or tries to run this application, we will stop it from happening. That's what a block list does. It does not move files into a safe area, so it would not be a block list. It would not be approval list, which is the opposite of that, which would effectively give you a green light to be able to use that. Nope, that's not the answer either. Hash identification could possibly be used as one of the criteria to identify that the file was malicious. Often that's not what we use. Often we use another type of filtering mechanism other than hashes, but that is one because it takes so long to create the hash. So hash identification actually rarely used to identify malicious software, although it could be. And one of the other pieces of that is that it doesn't move a file anywhere just by creating a hash. So that would not be the right answer. And digital signatures are used to make sure that nothing changes with the file that we are storing. That is not what we would use either. Digital signatures have nothing to do with moving files and storing them in a safe area. So what is the difference between a block list and a blacklist? Well, CompTIA no longer uses the term blacklist, and they use block list or deny list. Those are the more appropriate terms to use. I don't know. That's what they said. So you will no longer see the term whitelist or blacklist in the CompTIA exam objectives. It's now approved list or block list or deny list. So that's what, if someone studying for the 501, that may be a little confusing to you. You're looking at this and saying that looks similar to his 501 content, but the words have changed. That's because the words have changed. That's the only difference. The words have changed. So that's just another way to use these. And probably it's a little more accurate. It's a little more descriptive on what it actually is. Take the reasoning of changing the names away. Saying that it's on a block list or an allow list is much easier to understand what's going on. So that's actually a pretty good term to use instead of something that's a little vaguer. Vigorous. It's more vague. You know what I'm saying? So don't use those. Use allow lists and block lists, which actually tell you what it does. Makes sense to me. So if you answered C, quarantine, got it absolutely right. Let's move on to another question. I've got one for you, maybe a little harder for you, which asks, which of the following would be most associated with AIS? So this is when you do have to know some of these terms from your 601 exam. Which of the following would be most associated with AIS? Would it be sticks and taxi? Would it be zero-day attacks? Would it be syslog? Would it be data exfiltration? Or would it be encrypted tunnel? Which of the following would be most associated with AIS? Is it sticks and taxi? Is it zero-day attacks? Is it syslog? Is it data exfiltration? Or is it encrypted tunnel? All of these are real things. I didn't make up any of these. These are real. These acronyms can just kill you on the exam, can't they? This is another one of the reasons, though, that I don't necessarily say give you or even recommend that you do any type of flashcard. I don't, perhaps in a little more context, let me say that knowing the terms associated with an acronym, knowing the words that go along with an acronym are not important at all for this exam. Understanding what those things do or how they are applied is the important part. So this is sort of a two-step question. You would either have to know in your brain what AIS is, or you would have to figure out AIS means these 3 or 4 words or whatever it is. And after that, you would then have to know how to apply that. So this is very common that you will see on the exam, is these questions about AIS. They're not asking you, what does AIS mean? What do the words in AIS stand for? You will never get a question like that. That's just a gimme. It's a trivia question. You will never see those. I shouldn't say never. You're not going to see them. You will not get questions like that on your exam. It would be remarkably unusual to see a question like that on your exam. How about that? That leaves me a little bit of wiggle room. But that is not one you will absolutely find on here. AIS is something you need to know. You need to know how it's applied, and then you can answer this question. We'll see how you do with this one. This is definitely a 601 question. People in the chat room saying, well, if I'm watching this and I'm taking the 501, is this going to help me? Not a lot, actually. There's probably a couple of questions in here that's sort of 501 specific. But again, we have 3+ years of 501 practice exams and study groups that you can go through. Plenty there to go through for all of those. So this might help. Actually, context of this does help a little bit. Some of these topics certainly are from the 501, so you get a little bit of content in there that is a little specific to 501. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following would be most associated with AIS? Would it be sticks and taxi, zero-day attacks, syslog, data exfiltration, or encrypted tunnel? And you answered 33% of you say sticks and taxi. A nice third of you said that. 25% said syslog, 18% said data exfiltration, 15% said encrypted tunnel, 9% said zero-day attacks. We're just not sure, are we? So this is a tough one if you are not familiar with the 601 content, because this is definitely a 601 question. And a lot of the topics, a lot of the answers here are definitely 601 specific to this one. So let's talk about AIS. And what is important with this. This comes from section 1.5, my video on threat intelligence. And AIS stands for Automated Indicator Sharing. Now, this is something that's a relatively new idea that we have really jumped on in the industry, because one of the problems is that there are so many threats that are incoming to our networks. So many different threats. And it's almost difficult to keep up with these if you were to do this manually. Now you want to be able to sort of find all the threats that are happening out there and then in some way identify if any of those threats are hitting your network. Well, we need to have some way that my automated systems can be updated with descriptors that would help us understand what these threats are. Well, there are standard formats to be able to do that. One of those standard structures is called a structured threat information expression, or a STIX. So this will have the list of this threat. I don't have to do anything. I'll just get an inbound message to my management server that is in this format. It's in the STIX format, which has cyber threat information like motivations, abilities, capabilities, and response information. So that's pretty useful, that STIX function. Now how do we get the STIX into this device? They take a taxi. The Trusted Automated Exchange of Indicator Information. We can't just send this stuff with a web page. We needed some very secure way to transfer this information from place to place, and the standard for transferring it is the taxi, the Trusted Information Exchange of Indicator Information. Who says we don't have a sense of humor in this industry? Well, actually, it's not that funny, but you know what I'm saying. We have the taxi. It transmits and transfers the STIX information, and we therefore are more protected on our network because we have this information. So if you have an automated indicator sharing system as part of your threat management tools, it is going to use STIX and taxi to be able to do that. So STIX and taxi is A. If you answered A, 35% of you got that one. Absolutely right. 25% of you said syslog. Syslog, a great way to transfer log information from devices that are in your network, such as routers, switches, other services, and servers. Great way to transfer logs, but has nothing to do with AIS or transferring threat information, so that's not what that would be. 17% of you said data exfiltration. AIS has nothing to do with exfiltrating data. Has to do with transferring and securely transferring threat information into your threat management servers. 15% of you said encrypted tunnel. This is not encrypted tunnel technology. It almost sounds like AES. We almost had some encryption there, which is why I said encrypted tunnel, but not what we were looking for. AES is different than AIS, so make sure you're familiar with the differences. And zero-day attacks, although AIS could in some way be transferring information that had inside of it a threat that was associated with a zero-day attack. We had to go through a number of steps to get to that point, didn't we? Would not be most associated with AIS. The one that is the most associated with AIS, no question, is the sticks and the taxi. That's what we were shooting for. That might help you if you're looking for that. Answer was A. 35% of you got that one. Absolutely right. Well done. Well, one of the things you'll notice in the A+ exam or Network Plus, Security Plus, is a lot of these types of terms and acronyms and things you need to know. And we only got more of them for the 601 exam. Now, if you are working on your 501, there are a set of practice exams available for the 501 and practice exams available for the 601. I have both of these. There's both of those practice exam books. There are digital versions of these practice exam books. This is for the 501, the practice exam book. That's the course notes book. Here's the practice exam book. I've got this one right here. Here we go. Picked up the wrong one. There it is. The practice exam book. So if you are working on your 501, there are practice exams available for you. Go to ProfessorMester.com. You can find those practice exams, and they are both digital and physical versions of these books. If you get the physical version, I will send you the digital one for free. We'll talk later about the course notes, which is what I held up before. I do have course notes available for the 601 and 501. You'll find those on the Professor Messer website as well. But if you're working on these, you will want something that can help you know if you're ready to take the exam. The 501 is one. Now, in the chat room, people have even said, wait, there's not a practice exams book for the 601. Well, not yet, but it is coming. In the coming months, you'll see a 601 practice exam book. It will be released, and of course, you'll hear about it and see it on my website. I am working towards that. We're already working on it. It's already underway. Do not worry, because these are valuable tools to be able to know whether you're really ready to take the exam. And so there will be a 601 book for you to go with. Absolutely no question, to be able to work through that. Let's go now and have a look at another multiple choice question I have for you. This question asks, a database has been modified so that every person listed in the database has been replaced with a completely different first and last name. Which of the following would best describe this modification? Would it be proxy? Would it be pseudonymization? Would it be intelligence fusion? Would it be OSINT? Would it be fake telemetry? Got a few options there. A database has been modified so that every person listed in the database has been replaced with a completely different first and last name. Which of the following would best describe this modification? Is it proxy? Is it pseudonymization? Is it intelligence fusion? Is it OSINT? Is it fake telemetry? If you think you know the answer, lock in your answer. ProfessorMester.com/QA. There's the link. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Did I say free digital copies? I did. If you get the physical version of these books. So if you purchase the physical printed dead tree version of any of my books, you get the digital version for free. Just I throw that in. So while you're waiting on this to be delivered to you in the mail, you can download the PDF version immediately and use that. Or you could just buy the digital version. You don't have to get the physical version. Just buy the digital version, and then you can download it right now. You can download it in minutes to have all of that available. So you may have to figure these out and be able to work through them. This is an interesting topic, and we'll talk about how this sort of came about on the 601 exam once we're through this particular question. But why would we do that? Why would we replace names? There's a whole security piece behind this, especially with databases and figuring this out. We'll have to step through them and see how we do. I noticed not a lot of people are jumping into this one. We're having to really go through all the answers and be able to work through these to make that happen. Be an important part of that and have all of those different pieces there. I should do my marketing backwards. Digital should cost money and paper is free. I don't know if you've ever printed anything in color. It is definitely not free. And some people like to have the books. But the digital is one that is an option. If you don't want to have trees, you don't want to, and quite honestly, we're not saving anything. We grow trees here where I live. And when we cut them down, we grow them again. We don't have a shortage of paper. There's no paper shortage. So we don't have to worry about running out of paper or we're using too many resources. No, we just grow them. There's a huge industry in paper. It grows like a weed. So in my part of the world, we do tons of paper. But I get it. Some people don't want paper. I like digital. I like doing everything on digital. So maybe you don't want a printed book. Mrs. Professor Messer prefers the printed book. So I give you the option. It costs a little more to print things. So you have that option. It's much less expensive to do digital. That's one of those things. Plus you got to ship it. There's a whole set of things. Digital is so quick and easy. And to have all these things there. Let's step through this question, see how we did. The question asked, a database has been modified so that every person listed in the database has been replaced with a completely different first and last name. Which of the following would best describe this modification? Is that a proxy? Is it pseudonymization? Is it intelligence fusion? Is it OSINT? Is it fake telemetry? All of these are real things, by the way. If you don't know what one of these is, make a note. You need to go back to your exam objectives and have a look at that particular topic. So let's see how you did. Let's look. 79% of you went with the big term, pseudonymization. It sounded complex. It sounded like what we should do. So we went with it. 80% said that. 8% said fake telemetry is what that is. 6% said OSINT. Another 6% said intelligence fusion. And 1% said proxy. That's what it is. So that's one of those cases where we have a pretty clear winner, but why do we have that term to begin with? Well, mostly because of the GDPR and the EU. So pseudonymization takes a name, an identifier of a person, scrambles it up so that we can still refer to that person, but we don't have their actual name. So, and it also may have a reversible table, so we can put these names back just in case if there's something we do need to do that back and forth. So you may want to have something that just randomly replaces names. So instead of having my name, it changes it to Jack O'Neill, or changes it to Sam Carter, or changes it to Daniel Jackson. And it's just random. Every time it comes up, it's a different name. Maybe it's not directly connected. So every time somebody in a call center pulls up my record, has a different name on it. Tomorrow they pull up the same record, a different name appears. So it's a way just to keep the name secure, keep it away from prying eyes. Or maybe it's always locked into the same name. So every time they pull up my record, it brings it up and it always shows George Hammond. Every time they bring up my record, it's George Hammond. Every time it's George Hammond. Every single time. But this is the options that your application developer and everyone else gets to decide on, is what we would use for that. The process, though, is pseudonymization, also pseudo-anonymization is another way to say this. So a couple different ways. It really came out from the GDPR and being able to protect people's privacy. And it's a very common way now to keep data within a database, but have it in a way that's protecting you, which is, of course, something we always would like to have. Pseudonymization is the right answer. If you answered B, 80% of you got that right. Now, if you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, this is what you can do to be able to send me a message that I can then send back to you with information that guarantees, or at least describes, that you were here for this. It gives you a certification, certifies you were here. What you want to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. Click on that Contact Us link. It brings up a form. Put your name, put your email address. In the subject line, you can put somewhere in there something along the lines of April 2021 Security Plus Study Group. I'll know what you're talking about. And then in the body of the message by itself, put the word proxy. I'm not going to make you type in pseudonymization. The secret word is proxy. The super secret word of the month is proxy. Proxy is what you want to put in there. And then if you'd like to put anything else in that message, you're more than welcome to. I read through every single one of them. I'm not necessarily able to reply back to every single one because I get hundreds of these requests every month, but at least you know I saw it. So, and I do appreciate that. I do like the messages you send, and I do read through them. And I do enjoy that. So if you're, again, go to the top or the bottom of the website, click the Contact Us link, put your name, your email address, put in the subject line, this is the April 2021 Security Plus Study Group, and then put the super secret code word of the month, proxy. proxy. Proxy is the super secret code word of the month. So there you go. That would at least get you those things there. I don't know what you're talking about whatever SGC is or whatever. Anything that's in here is fictional. It does not in any way compromise anyone's trademarks. It's just simply a random set of numbers and letters and names I chose. That's all that is. Let's do another question. We got some time left. This next question asks, a user inputs a PIN, PIN, during the login process. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it TOTP, push notification, attestation, static code, federation? A user inputs a PIN during the login process. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it TOTP, push notification, attestation, static code, federation? If you think you know the answer, let me put the link up. There it is. Go to ProfessorMester.com/QA and lock in your answer. This would not be a 501 question. Well, would it be a 501 question? I'm not going to say. So I think I might give away a little something. It could be, or it might not be. Yeah, now I'm answering like CompTIA does in their frequently asked questions file. We might give you partial credit. We might not give you partial credit. Well, thanks for the answer. So maybe you can break through at least what these happen to be and figure out the details of it. And at least be able to step through this and know the differences. In all of this, authentication is certainly an important part of the exam. It's a much bigger part in the 601, it seems. There's a little more emphasis in authentication for some reason. Or it may just be that I'm pumping through these videos very, very fast. I'm just going. There's producing content. We are shooting, we are editing, we are posting. And by we, I mean me. I am shooting, I'm editing, I'm posting. And I try to get all of this done as quickly as possible. So when I sit down to shoot videos, I'm shooting 5, 6, 7 videos at a time in a single day. So I shoot those videos, they go in storage, and then the next day, if I have time, I just shoot another 6 or 7. 5, 6, or 7. It's kind of what it turns out to be. Sometimes it's one a day. Sometimes they're very complex. There's some videos I'm doing that are a lot of demonstration and hands-on. And for those, it takes a little more time. So on your exam, there'll be 4 choices, right? Well, I think most of the exam answers will have 4, but sometimes you have more than 4. It's not always 4 choices on the exam. It might be more than that. Let's see how you did with this one. A user inputs a PIN, PIN, during the login process. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it TOTP, push notification, attestation, static code, or federation? All of these are real things. 40% of you say it's TOTP. We have 34% of you that say it's static code. 15% said attestation. 9% said push notification. 3% said federation. Did not get a majority for any of these. That's sad. But the one that was a plurality was TOTP. 40% of you said TOTP. Not the right answer. Not the correct answer. The correct answer is what 34% of you chose, which is static code. A static code is an authentication factor that does not change, is not modified at all. You just have to remember it. So that's the one that you have to know. Something like a password, something like a personal identification number. I mean, how often does the PIN change that you use to log into your ATM? You put in your ATM card, you put in your personal identification number. How often does it change? It doesn't. It never changes. It's always the same. So it could also be a password. Password is static, never changes. You have to know what it is. You have to type it in to be able to have that there. That is another one. That is static. It never changes to be able to have that there. Something like a time-based one-time password, the TOTP, it's one-time password, and it changes every 30 seconds, every 60 seconds, however your administrator set these up. It's based on the amount of time that goes by. So a TOTP is never something that is used as a PIN, a personal identification number, because personal identification numbers don't change. TOTP, in fact, would be a different kind of authentication factor than a PIN. Can we break this one out and figure that out? So a PIN, personal identification number, is something you know, versus a TOTP, which in most cases is something you have, because you have to have your pseudo random number generator hardware token, or you have to have an app on your phone. You have to have your phone to be able to have that TOTP. So that's it. That is why TOTP would not be the right answer. Static, though, is something that never changes. Your PIN never changes. Your password never changes. That's the one we were looking for. Personal identification number is static. 34% of you. D is the right answer there. 14% of you said attestation. Attestation is a process that normally is when you're doing some type of check of a system to see if it meets a minimum level of security. So you're doing a policy check, you're doing a posture assessment, and once you do that posture assessment, you need to send back a message to the main management console that attests that this system is either operable or not operable or meeting a certain set of requirements. That is the attestation process. That does not have anything to do with putting a PIN in the login process. So that makes sense. Push notification. Push notifications commonly used for some of our multi-factor authentications. I just used it to log into Windows. You can't see it here, but in my studio here, I've got a machine running Windows that does all the streaming, and that device up there, I had to log in this morning. I never log in. I had to log into it. And when I did that, I had to put in my information. I put in my username, and it asked me for a password, and I thought, I don't know what the password is. They're all randomized. They're in my one password. But it gave me the option to use the Microsoft Authentication app and use the push notifications of that app. So I just opened the app, and the app even said, hey, I notice you're trying to log in. Push this button if you're logging in. And I did, and it pushed the authentication back. Very useful to have. And then, so it would not be push notifications not used with a personal identification number. That's not how that works. And lastly, 3% said federation. Federation is a way that you could use credentials created on a different service to be able to authenticate to a service in this particular place, a different service. So for instance, if you're authenticating into the chat that's on my website, you can use your Facebook login to authenticate to that chat. And that would be federation. Very common to use for that. So you don't have to create a new account. You don't have to create a new username and password. You don't have to remember a new username and password. That's something that federation is very useful to have. But in this case, we're using a personal identification number. We're putting it in during the login process, which would describe this authentication method. That is static code. That's the only one that fits into any of these options. If you answer D, static code, 35% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. That is what you were shooting for. It is not the time-based one-time password, because the time-based one-time password changes all the time. And that would not be a personal identification number to have those types of things. So not something we could really work through to have that there. Well, that is all of these questions, by the way, come directly from the exam objectives. So if you're trying to figure out where did he get this static code thing, where did all of these odd terms that he was talking about today, where did this come from? It came directly from the exam objectives. If you don't have these objectives, you're doing yourself a disservice. This is an amazing resource for you. I have a link to CompTIA that can get you these objectives. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/objectives. It'll take you right over. And if you go to ProfessorMesser.com/objectives, there's other options there. I'm thinking of maybe even creating a comparison of 501-601, but there's just so much that's different. It may not even be worth the time. If you're also looking for it, you can always go to Google, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It will take you right to the page. You don't even have to go to my site to be able to do that. We do one of these study groups every month. We have, of course, things coming up in the second hour. We're not done yet. Stick around. But I do like to tell you we do these every month. The next one's going to be on May the 19th. And there's, of course, more than the Security Plus study group we do. We do A Plus study group on the 4th and the 6th. We do a Network Plus study group on the May the 12th. And we do the Security Plus study group on May the 19th. At least that's what I think it's going to be. And that's what it currently says if you go to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar. Sometimes, though, my world gets chaotic and things change. So if that happens, you will see that the calendar will immediately change anytime I make one of these. It's my first place I go whenever I have to change the dates of these. So if you're trying to figure out, is he really going to do it on that date? You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar. You'll be able to see. Also on that link is a Google Calendar link. And I always update the Google Calendar as well. So if you've got this linked to your calendar, then it will simply automatically move around your calendar as the dates of this change. So it's another great way to keep track of this and what's going on. I mentioned earlier the 501 and 601 course notes. Let me tell you about these 601 course notes. Just to give you an example, I'm going to flip back to the 501. The 501 course notes, the 94 pages I list here are just the 94 pages of the notes. This is not introduction or title pages or anything. It's 94 pages of notes in the 501. Just to give you an idea of how much this has changed on the 601, 120 pages of notes on the 601. This book is getting fatter and fatter and more expensive to print. It is huge, the number of pages. Now, if it's digital, what's the difference between 90 and 120? That's not a big deal. But if you're printing it out, it's starting to get a pretty thick book there. Just so you're aware, on the 601 really is bigger. It's substantially larger. There's a lot more you have to know. So you need to have books that really cover every one of those topics. And the course notes books is absolutely done. Is the 601 practice exam book almost done? Oh, no. No, we're finishing up the videos first, then we're going to work on the book. But we're only a couple months away from that. It's not long before we'll have that book available and have all of those pieces there. But that's on my website too, professormesser.com. You'll find links to all that for the 601 course notes, professormesser.com/601CN. Now we have much more to go through. We're going to open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. We'll talk about whatever you'd like in the after show. Also want to remind you about the subscriptions on YouTube. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. And if you have enjoyed this video, click that like button. If you're watching this live, click the like button. Maybe you learned something today. That's a great way to give me feedback that what we're doing is the right thing here. Don't forget about our weekly Security Plus pop quiz questions on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter and professormesser.com/Instagram. My discount vouchers on my website at professormesser.com/vouchers. For those of you in the chat room that are outside of North America, unfortunately, the vouchers are not valid. They are only good for what CompTIA calls North America. That is Canada, U.S., Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Guam. Of course, naturally, we think of Guam as being in North America. But in this case, we're kind of pulling it in as a territory. So it does fit as those vouchers. But those are the only countries available. And if you go to the page, it does mention that. If you go to the checkout page, you have to put in your country code. I do a couple of 2 or 3 extra checks because I never read when I go to websites. I just miss all the others. All of those other countries would have to purchase vouchers from an entity in their country. So it would not be me, unfortunately. So sad. Of course, don't forget about the course notes and don't forget about the exams at professormesser.com/securitycn and professormesser.com/securitype. So that's what we've got for our Q&A section of our study group. Stick around for the after show. I'll take your questions from the chat room. I'll take your phone calls. We'll do it all next. Thanks for joining us in this first hour, and we will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. Let's now shift gears. Let's see if I can fix my cameras. There we go. Hi, chat room. It was a big question when I first started reselling these vouchers and having them available for you. The North America was a question. I asked, what is North America? In some places, North America includes Mexico. In some places, it doesn't. So, but that's what it literally is Mexico, United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, Guam. Those are the 5. So that's the way it works. Now, if you'll bear with me just a moment, I'm going to bring up, I don't even have my Skype running on my screen. I'm going to bring up my own Skype and call into my own show. My own show is not even up. So we're going to get that running too. And once I start this show, I will tell you how you can join. So if you just bear with me just a moment, I'm going to bring up my shows. We're going to host a show. I'm going to click some buttons. The nice lady's going to talk to us in just a moment when I click my Skype and have it call in, because I have to turn this on so I can hear it a little bit. There it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I type in a special code word here on this screen.
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that if I can remember what it is. And I think I do. And if I do...
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. So that means that you could join as well if I put those particular graphics up on the screen. I need my own staff here that can sort of manage this whole process instead of me having to do it every time. And I'll put the phone number up. That's not the phone number. That's the title screen. There's your phone number. So you can participate as well. We'd love to have you call in or put questions into the chat room. The chat room that you see on the Professor Messer website is the same chat room that you have available on my webs on YouTube. So it's the same thing. So I'm watching, it's all just one chat to be able to have that there and all of those pieces. So that's, of course, what's available. If you would like to call in, though, on the phone with your voice, kind of an odd way to do things, but if you'd like to do it that way, here's the phone number. It's a toll-free number inside the continental United States, 855-785-RJ45. The west of the Rockies is 855-785-7545. That's how you would get to me. Now, there's also a way to call in for free from outside the continental United States. You can use Skype because Skype does not require any Skype minutes for a toll-free number, of which this is. But you do have to put the country code at the beginning. So put a +1 855-785-7545, and that would get you there as well. So that's where that comes from. That's where all of those different options are. And if you do that, you can call in. I will also take questions in the chat room, like the one that comes in. Am I sitting in front of a green screen? Nope, that's real. There's real stuff back there. Those are real things. There's no screen. I wish I had something I could throw at it, but I don't. The stuff I throw is, these are my books. Here is the 601 course notes. There you go. So there it is now in the background. Maybe though it's an interactive green screen, and by throwing the book, no, it doesn't work that way. No, it really is. It really is a real background there. It's my real motherboard. My son drew the picture of the joystick, the Atari joystick. That is my silver award from YouTube. Those are all mine. There's a Mac up there. There's all kinds of stuff. So that's a real thing. It does kind of look, but it's so blurred. It does sort of look like it's not real to have all of those things there, but it really is. Some folks in the chat room were also asking about the vouchers. The vouchers do not include the Caribbean. So only those countries or territories I mentioned can be purchased from my site. That would be the United States, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Guam. That's it. I know, but that's the way they do it. It's not my decision, but that's how they do it. I think there's a lot of issues around international currency reporting. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. So that's the way that works. What's the next tier for me? I guess for YouTube, because that's my YouTube 100,000 subscriber. I think that's what that is. So I think the next level for YouTube is like 1 million subscribers, which we're coming up. Actually, in the next month, we'll probably be at 500,000. I'm not much of a subscriber chaser kind of person. I think those, from my perspective, are just sort of and the way that we do things. I like it to be more organic. So if you subscribe, then you have found a value there. And it's something that you did naturally without me having to tell you constantly in my videos. None of my videos say subscribe, comment, hit the bell. I just don't do that. I talk about it sometimes on the live stream, of course, just so that you will be able to have access to these new videos I'm creating. But I think most of us know about this by now, don't we? So there's no reason to keep saying it over and over and over and over again. So question in the chat room: are the difficulty level of the questions in my study groups equivalent to the difficulty level of the real 601 exam? To some degree, yes or no. Not all questions on the 601 exam will be as straightforward or short as the ones I have here. I have to put the questions into a format that works well for these live streams, but the sort of the difficulty that I add to them, the multiple steps that we go through, are very similar to the multiple steps that you will need to go through in the actual exam. For example, I mentioned earlier that you're not going to get a question with an acronym that says, what does that acronym stand for? What do the words stand for? You're never going to get a question like that, or a trivia question. And so, of course, you don't see questions like that on my live streams or anywhere else for that matter. So that is one where I don't put that there. I don't try to make it easier than it should be, but I don't want to overdo it. I want to give you a good balance of learning the content. So I would say this is one step away, or pretty close to, some of the types of questions you might see on an actual exam. They're certainly written with a similar style. They certainly have a similar approach to their complexity, but the number of the questions you'll get on your exam will be more involved. They'll have another couple of sentences, 2 or 3 sentences worth of sort of a preamble, and then a question about having that answer. So I would say they're not bad. Sometimes I've had people say, I took your study group, or I watched your study groups, and some of the questions in your study group pretty much showed up word for word on my exam. That's not by design. I write all of these questions originally, and I don't reference anybody else's materials. They're all original questions every time we do one of these live streams. But at least it seems like I'm getting close to the types of things they're asking about. I just think some of the questions on the exam are going to be a little bit more involved than what you saw here. But even here today, we had questions that were a little more complicated. So we've got a little bit of that and options whenever you're working through all those different things. Let's go to the phone calls. There were a number of other questions that came up about those, but let's first go to the phone calls. The 571 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Yeah, hi. My name is Mike, and I'm calling from Florida.
Hey, Mike from Florida, another Floridian. What can we do for you?
Yeah, hi, Professor Messer. I was just interested. Would you recommend taking either the 401 or 501 or even the 601? What would you recommend taking those exams?
I do have a video where I tried to break down what my recommendation was and why I made that recommendation. I gave that link earlier. I'm going to bring this up on my screen again so you folks can see this. This was from way earlier in the study group, and I kind of went by it really, really fast. But it is I made this video when the 601 exam first came out. And here's the link. It's at the bottom of the screen here, which you can't see because there we go. It's professormesser.link/601wait. And this is one where I created, because some people were saying, oh, the 601 is coming, maybe I should wait and take that exam. That is generally not what I ever recommend people doing. I think you should never wait to get certified. I think there's much more value to have the certification in your pocket than it is to wait for an exam to come through. But now that you've got the option between the 501 and 601 right now, you could take either one of those. Which one should you take? And we're getting to the point where I still think the 501 is the more viable option. It's the faster option. It's the easier option. But the 601 is there. And if you're like me, we've got about 100 days left before that 501 goes away forever. That exam will no longer be available on July 31st is the last day. So if you're looking at your schedule, or your style of studying, and you're thinking, this takes me a long time, it takes me 6 months to study for a certification exam, or I just don't want to be pressured into the time that it takes to get to that point to take the exam. So instead of worrying about this deadline where the 501 goes away completely, maybe you'll decide to take the 601. And that's a perfectly reasonable way to think about how to do this. It's more about timing. And being able to work through that. There's many more materials available to study for the 501 because it's been out for 3 years plus. The 601 is relatively new. Even though it came out in November, it takes a long time to get study materials out, about 6 months, which is about where we are now in the process of making these books and these videos. So mine are just finishing up. I just released more videos, but I've still got a couple weeks worth to put out. We're all sort of finishing up our 601. So I think it's a strategy now where you have to think about the pluses and minuses. Do I have the time? Are there enough materials that I'm comfortable with that I would be able to use? And is this something I think I could do before the other is retired? Otherwise, whether you take the 501 or 601 does not matter from a certification perspective. You're Security Plus certified either way. There's no qualification to your certification based on which version of the exam you took. So you get to make that decision, and maybe one fits better for what you're doing than the other. And maybe you'll be able to decide based on both of those. Hopefully that gives you some perspective, Mike.
Oh, thanks. It sure does, Professor Messer. And currently, I do hold the 201 Good for Life. Is that worth really anything out there in the market?
It is not, because like me, you've been in the industry a bit. You've taken some of these certification exams prior to 2001, when these versions of the exam were available. It used to be, for those of you that weren't around during that time, that when you passed a certification exam from CompTIA, it was GFL. It was good for life. And you never had to take or update that exam ever again, which really didn't make a lot of sense when you're talking about operating systems, networking, or security, because those things change like every month. And so what they did years ago was change from a good for life model to one where you would need to renew the certification every 3 years. And whether you realize it or not, when they started doing that, they reached out to you, they sent you an email, they sent you a letter and said, if you would like to move your certification to be from GFL to the CE version, the continuing education version, just tell us and we will move it over, but you're going to have to renew it in 3 years. And they did that for about a year. And at this point, employers are asking for the CE version, especially federal government that really wants to see you have a Security Plus certification. They require that it's the CE version. They're looking to make sure that you have your certification and that you have kept it up to date through the years and that your current version is a valid CE version. So that's the real key. That's the one you should think about when trying to figure out which one to take.
But thanks a lot, Professor Messer.
I appreciate the call. Thanks for doing that. That's always a worry when you're trying to figure out which one of these do I take? Is there a difference in them? You know, once you earn the certification, it doesn't matter. In fact, you'll never take the exam again, hopefully, once you earn your certification. It's not even something I would even recommend doing. There's so many other ways to renew your certification. That's what I would recommend as well, is you going down that road. In the chat room, some other questions that came in. Are the test exams for the 501 on my site? They are. It's my practice exams book. There it is. A little easier to see when it's big. It's not. Unfortunately, I didn't throw this one back there in the background. I could at least pull that one up and show it to you. The 501. The 601 practice exam book is, I'm writing it. It's underway. I've got more questions to write and put in there. It's coming in the upcoming months, though, to have that and have all of those available. Also in the chat room, question, you bought the 601 digital edition, but you saw, let's see, the 601 physical I threw over there. So you said, I like the one that you threw on the ground over there. I'd like that one, please. And you can upgrade it. Just send me a note, and you can upgrade it for the difference in price. So I can give you a coupon that will give you a discount against the upgrade based on what you've already purchased it on. So the printed just costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to print a book and do it in color. But this is it's a beautiful book. It's all these different charts and diagrams and things are in beautiful, rich, nice, heavy stock color. And that costs money. So the digital is great, but if you decide then, I really should have gotten the physical version, that would have been much better for me, I can upgrade you for the difference in cost. So yeah, send me a note, open a ticket under your member login, or just hit the Contact Us link at the top and tell me, here's my email, here's what I bought. I just need to upgrade it, send me a coupon, and I'll send you a coupon, the instructions. It's a pretty much standard thing to be able to do that. Is the old book any good for the new exam? Let's say you had the 501 book like I have in my hands right now, and you say, can I just use this for the 601? You cannot. Only half of this content is on the 601 exam. half. So you would go into the exam and you would maybe the questions you got, let's say you best case scenario, you would get a 50% on the exam, which is not a passing score, by the way. So no, do not use older materials or newer materials for an older test or vice versa. If you're taking the 501 exam, make sure all your materials say 501. Make sure they do not say 601. If you're taking the 601 exam, do not use 501 materials. Use 601 books and materials and videos. Be very specific for those. So that's the way you do it. If you're interested in doing that upgrade, hit the Contact Us link at the top of my site or open a ticket in your member login at professormesser.com/members, and I would be glad to provide you with that coupon difference for you for all of those. This is really the thing we're on right now. And this happens every time we do a changeover from one version of exam to another, is there are differences in these exams. Sometimes the differences are relatively minor. When we went from Network Plus last time, I think the differences were about a 21% difference, 20% difference. There wasn't much of a difference, an update to that exam, because networking technologies don't tend to dramatically change through the years. It's really one particular thing that we're working on, and 20% update was pretty much made sense. For security this time, you'll notice that the security exam changed dramatically in that we had the exam itself is like 120%, 130% larger. All right, that's big. And then on top of that, only half of the material from the 501 was included in the 601. So that means half of this exam is brand new. It's another reason it takes forever to create new content for these exams. That's why you're just starting to see some of these books roll out. You're just seeing my video course finish up. I've got 75% of the courses online now. We got another 25% to do that we'll be able to get out in the next few weeks. It just takes a long time to be able to have that. So that's the real challenge, is finding a way to get all of this content to you in a way that is the highest quality, because once it's done, it's going to be there and available for 3 years. So it needs to be right out of the gate. And it needs to be specific to the 601 right out of the gate. And it needs to be spot on with what CompTIA is expecting right out. Otherwise, I'd have to go back and redo the whole thing. And nobody wants that either. So that's why, to be able to do that. What would I recommend to get a better understanding of the 501 exam objectives in section 5 and 6? Well, you've got the exam objectives, so that's the important part. You've got the list of things. I go through each one in my video. I go through each one of those topics in my video. I think if you should have a good book already. If you do not have a good book for your Security Plus, then you should absolutely make sure you have a good book. If you're reading through your book and it's not giving you what you need for sections 5 and 6 of the certification exam, you need another book. You need to find one that talks to you a little better. Now, one of the things that's good for doing that is just go out to Amazon, use their Look Inside feature, read through a chapter that's in the Amazon book so you can see and feel how the author is writing this, what their voice is as they write through it. Some authors connect better with people than others. And somebody that I might like, you might not like. So that's the problem with suggesting one as well, is that they all are a little bit different and they all are sort of personal to your own likings. But I do have a list on my website that I like, so you would have some options available. If you go to professormesser.com and you bring up the option under Security Plus 501, if I can get to that page myself and allow you to see that. Let's see if I can put myself on the screen. There we go. I do have some study resources on my site. And of course, my videos, there's the books. So here's 3 very good Security Plus books that are highly rated on Amazon. Go to each one of these and read through them. Click the link. It'll take you right to Amazon. And you can read through them and get a feel for it. I think that's a very good way to find the right fit for what you're trying to do, is through those certification guides. I think it's a great way to to find the one that works for you. Because I could tell you what I used, but that's not going to help you for you. Are there any 601 books? There are. I don't know if I put them on my site yet. I have not. But I do have a list that I'm compiling because it really just now seeing a lot of the good ones come out. Just now. It's been since November. That just gives you an idea. This is normal for these. So some of the ones that are just coming out, it's about time to finally release that study resource page for that. So that helps too if you're working through that. This video will be a video on demand. Yes, for every study group. As soon as we're done, YouTube will process the video, which takes a few minutes, and then it's immediately available for you to watch right afterwards. So absolutely. Could not be easier. I don't even have to push a button on my side. You don't have to wait on me to have that work. You can simply just go to YouTube and it'll be sitting right there for you, or go to the live page. It sits on the live page for about a week, or at least until the next live event. So you can always go to professormesser.com/live and the last live event will still be there. I usually update that page about a day before the next live event. So that would be useful. Under the Security Plus 501, are knowing the common ports and acronyms a big factor on the exam? Well, common ports are not in the 501 or the 601 exam objectives. So no, I wouldn't bother studying them. They're not in the exam objectives. Don't study them. I know a lot of people will tell you, no, you need to know some port numbers because there could be questions about these things that deal with port numbers, and there might be. But because they're not in the exam objectives, I would rather you study what absolutely would be on the exam no question, which is what's listed in the exam objectives, than what might show up on the exam objective because somebody else somewhere else said it might show up. Well, wouldn't the exam objectives tell us what's on the exam? They do. And they stay very close to those objectives. Spend your time memorizing what's on the exam objectives, even if they gave you a question that had something to do outside of the scope of the exam objectives. All of the other questions will come from the exam objectives, and you will have already prepared for those. So that's my philosophy is, even if they ask you something that's off script, throw it out. You don't need it. You know everything else. That's the difference. Use the exam objectives, use them as a checklist. If they put a port number on the objectives, I would tell you what those were, but they didn't. They didn't put anything on the objectives with port numbers. So don't bother going through them. Don't bother reading. And it's there might be, as a security professional, I think the philosophy that CompTIA takes is, well, you should already know your port numbers because you've been doing this for a year and a half. I think that's what the requirements or the recommendations are in their exam objective list. But because they're not specifically listed in the objectives, we have to make a decision on, do we make up a list of objectives? Who determines what that list of port numbers is? How many port numbers is it going to be? See where we go with this? Do we study 5? Do we study 20? Do we study 50? Why not study 100 port numbers? They're not listed, so maybe they could ask you 100 port numbers. No, they're not. Just don't study any. If they're not asking them, don't study them. Period. That's my philosophy. Now, I realize there's pluses and minuses to doing that, but I think the pluses far outweigh the minuses. That's the reason I have for doing those. So that makes sense hopefully it makes sense to you. It makes sense to me. That's the philosophy I've had with these exams for the past 14, 15 years that I've been doing this, is that I think I've got a pretty good idea of what to do. So in the chat room, some people say, well, I'll just take the port numbers from Network Plus. Okay. But just keep in mind, they did not put those in the Security Plus. Why would they have put them in the Network Plus and said you absolutely need to know these, and not put them in the Security Plus if you should absolutely know these? There has to be a reason they didn't include them in Security Plus. So hopefully you can take that to the next level on the philosophy of that. When will you give us your 601 book recommendations? I don't know. I look at what books are available every few weeks. So, go out to Amazon and flip through and see what's there. And there's just hasn't been a lot available yet. I think we're finally at the point where there is. So probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll put together that recommendation page. So at least you have something available. When will the practice exams for 601 be available? As soon as I write them. That's the thing. It's probably next couple months. That's the ones that I probably work through. It has to be written. That's the thing about this is I have to actually sit down and write everything that's in these books, and it doesn't happen magically. And I'm currently doing the videos. There's no staff of folks. Not sure if you look back here, not a lot of people in here. Lori handles my sort of back-end web server postings and keeping the website up and running kind of thing with all the content. But I still have to write the content. So you're waiting on me effectively. And I think I should get that done in the next few months. You'll be able to see those come out and have those available. Is starting with the CCNA certification a good idea? CCNA being that Cisco Certified Network Administrator certification. The CCNA is not a starter cert. It's not a beginner cert. So starting with the CCNA would be unusual. It would be a departure from the norm, a departure from the highest pass percentage that you would be working towards. Some people do that. They just say, I'm going to start with that one. I know it's more complex. I know it's going to take me more time because I've got to start from ground zero. I know it already expects me to have an understanding of some of these technologies, but I'm just going to do it anyway, and it's just going to take me longer. Okay, that's fair. I can work through that. But it's not where I would recommend people start. No one's going to hire you for an entry-level position with you having a CCNA. They're not looking for a CCNA. They're looking for somebody who's got an A+. They're looking for someone who has a network plus, maybe security plus, generally. But look in your area, maybe in your geography, for the people hiring in your area, that maybe they are looking for CCNA. They're not, but maybe they are. Maybe I don't know. And maybe suddenly now everybody's moved to CCNA. And maybe you'll find that there's a lot of that. So if the employers are asking for it, sure, that makes sense. But if you look at all these available jobs available for entry level as a starting position in IT, one of the things you'll probably notice is that CCNA is not very prominent, if it found at all, in an entry-level position. In fact, it's almost a disadvantage. If I walked into a position at a help desk and I said, well, I don't have an A+, but I've got my CCNA right there. Worked really hard for that. Took me forever. I can configure switch. I can configure router. I understand the dynamic routing protocols. I can fix it if people forget the password. I can recover the device. I can configure NAT. I can do all these things. Now, the person hiring for that job is going to look at you and go, you will be so bored on this A+, on this help desk. A+ is really what we're looking for. You're way overqualified for what we want, not the best fit for the job. I'm going to hire somebody else. That happens all the time. So you have to be very careful about what you're positioning yourself as when you walk into these jobs. The jobs that someone is looking for a CCNA is a network administrator. It's a switch administrator, a router administrator. That's the one people are looking for that particular cert. And that's not an entry-level job. They don't hire people off the street to manage switches and routers, generally. I guess maybe if they were desperate. But most people are not going to do that and have that available. I love these kind of questions because I think they sort of answer themselves. As someone who got thrown into a security plus class for 1 week, if you study every night, do you think it's passable with a week of classes? No, I don't. No, I hate the 1 week class, cram session, boot camp model. It doesn't teach you, there's no way it could possibly teach you everything you need to know to pass the exam because there physically isn't enough time in the day. Laws of physics do not allow you to learn everything you need to learn in those 5 classroom days to be able to pass the exam. It's physically not possible. So think about these 1 week cram session boot camp type of classes. when would you take a class like that? Well, I guess if you've already gone through a course, you've read a book, you're familiar with the exam objectives, maybe then in that 1 week, you could get some extra pieces of information. But if you've already gone through all of that, do you really now need a week of a training class when you've already gone through all the other things? Probably not. So there's very few scenarios that I can think of where a boot camp 1 week certification class makes any sense. I cannot figure out why I would do that. Now, from the person giving the class, from the company giving the class, they're charging $5,000 a head. There's lots of good reasons they would do it. Of course, they're going to offer the class, and employers keep sending people to these classes. So I think there's a good reason that they would want to do it. I just don't think that it's a very good way to study. It's a horrible way to study. You aren't able to get to grasp the nuances of these topics. And there's a lot of nuance with Security Plus. So I would not recommend that. That's not what I think you should do at all. That's not what I was shooting for. There we go. It's not what you should do at all. You should absolutely take this one step at a time, grab a section of the exam objectives, go through those bullets, understand everything you need to know about the bullets listed there, check those off your list, then go to the next step. Go the next set of bullets. Just take them a little bite at a time and go through it as far as you can and be able to work through those. That's the important part. I know it almost happened there. We were almost done, weren't we? Because the title page came up. Sorry about that. I'm just hitting the wrong buttons on my side, as if I've never done this before. There's too many buttons. I don't know if you can, well, you can't see that from there. You can see it from here. There's too many buttons here. They should never give me a panel this big when you're on live. There's 8 inputs, preview and production and preview and program. There's all these other buttons, all of these buttons for, I don't know, doing the wipes. I don't need to do all of that. I just need to do this. So that's the key. Now, there is a way to take all of these controls and just stick it in my iPad and do the 4 buttons I push and put them there, and I've not done it. So that's one of those where it's kind of nice to have this. This is a all-in-one unit. So all of video switching is happening in this unit. So I can't get rid of the unit. It needs to be here. Underneath all of this is the actual mechanics of the video switching system itself. It's not just a panel. It's not just the buttons. There's a lot more to it. So it's kind of nice to have it all there in one place. It's just a lot of buttons. It's easy for me to hit the wrong thing, which you do all the time. So I have to figure that out. One of these days, I will figure it out. One of these days, maybe someone will do this for me. But right now, we just do it all ourselves. I do it all myself. I say we. It's the royal we to do it all myself for all of those. Let's see what other folks have to say. So if you need to take your exam by the end of May, it's an odd name. Do you recommend 501 versus 601? I recommend 501. Now, end of May, we're in the end of April now, so that's a month. That is aggressive. That is an aggressive schedule. And given how aggressive that is, I would almost definitely point you in the line of 501 because there's so much more content available to study from. It's much better understood what you're going to see on the exam. It is a smaller exam. The number of topics on the 501 is much smaller than the 601, so there's a lot less to memorize. 501 wins every time. The only time you would probably switch over to 601 is if you're running out of time. And you're like, I'm not, you're thinking to yourself, there's no way I'm going to get this exam done by the end of July. Okay, let's do 601. That makes perfect sense, and you should do that. Also in the chat room, can you change your 601 voucher for a 501? Watch this. Just did it. There it is. Both the Security Plus vouchers will work to schedule either the 501 or the 601. Does not matter. So you don't have a 501 voucher or a 601 voucher. It's just a Security Plus voucher. So if you have a Security Plus voucher, you can turn it in to take either one of those exams. That was easy. I like the easy ones. So you can, makes it very simple. Also makes it very simple for me to give you the right one. I don't have to ask you, okay, which one are you going to take? And are you going to change your mind? You don't have to worry about it. You just use the same voucher for both. Do you think that studying 501 and 601 will help with the 601? No, don't do that. Awful idea. Horrible idea. Do not do that. Half of the 501 exam doesn't even show up on the 601. So awful idea. Don't do that. Never, never, never mix exam versions. Never study from materials made for one exam and go take a different one. Never do that. Never. You are absolutely setting yourself up for failure every time. Do not want to do that. And the content for the 601 covers everything you're going to be asked on the 601. That's what you want to study from, is one of those, and be able to work through that. Another question from Charles in the chat room. I need to renew. I think I want to go with Security Plus CertMaster CE. That's what that's called, CertMaster CE. Any thoughts? Absolutely. In fact, there's a video on my channel called How to Renew Your CompTIA Certification in Just a Few Hours. And it talks about the advantages and disadvantages from choosing the CertMaster CE to be able to do that. Now, for Security Plus, and let's have a look at the CompTIA website, and let's see what their requirements are for the CertMaster CE. For those of you not familiar with this, the CertMaster CE, or just the renewal process, a lot of people think that renewing is they collect CEUs and they turn them in. But what if you get down to the last day and now you don't have the way to accumulate those CEUs? You can take a single course in a few hours called the CertMaster CE Continuing Education course. You answer all the questions right in this computer-based training. And if you don't answer them right, it just asks, you have to go back and take the exam again. You take the test, you get a little sample test they have, and all of those. So for that, for the CertMaster CE, you would have to have taken the 501 or earlier, which is pretty much all of them right now. So you spend $199. It would be $150 if you were going to submit CEUs, by the way. So for an extra $50, you can take the CertMaster CE, and you've now got upgraded for 3 years in just a few hours. That's it. I think they say 4 to 6 hours. Almost everybody I've talked to said it's a few hours, maybe 3 to 4. Either way, that's still a great time frame. So in a few hours, in 4 to 6 hours, we'll say, based on what CompTIA tells you there, in 4 to 6 hours, you're now renewed for 3 years. You didn't have to collect CEUs. You didn't have to go to a trade show. You didn't have to watch anything on the web. You didn't have to submit any CEU requests. You didn't have to plug it. You don't have to pay anything extra on the website. There's no maintenance fee for CEUs. You just pay $199 and you're done. You take not $199, you take the course and you're done. Such an easy way to, why isn't everybody doing this to upgrade? That's really a great way to upgrade. I think it appeals to me anyway. That's what I would use to upgrade and have all of this. So it makes sense. Another question in the chat room, since we're talking about which exam do we take, 501 or 601? Yeah, but the 601 goes through these particular topics. There's some other topics they go through. Some of the topics are newer. They do some more cloud. There's SSH. There's more things in there. Isn't that a good thing? Yes, it is. Sure it is. But the 501 is just as valid in the topics it covers. Nothing in the 501 is outdated. Nothing in the 501 is suddenly not used anymore. Everything on the 501 still applies to the world that we use in security. The real challenge is about getting it done now. I guess it really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to take the latest certification exam because it's teaching you something that you feel is more relevant to what's going on in networks today, it's not entirely accurate, but let's say that's your philosophy and that's reasonable. But then, and you want to go through every topic, really understand every topic, dive into the details of every topic, maybe do lots of hands-on with every topic, breaking them up into small pieces, really getting a complete understanding of everything there. And then finally go and take your certification exam and get the certification. 601 makes sense for you. Absolutely. Most people taking the Security Plus exam are trying to earn a Security Plus certification. That's it. Certifications exams aren't there to teach you everything you would ever need to know about everything relating to a topic. It's not what a certification exam does. Certification exam says that you are knowledgeable enough at this very static set of objectives to understand the basics of that. Getting certified is a starting point in your path to knowledge, and it indicates that you have completed the first phase in that starting point to your path to knowledge. It is not ever in any way with anyone's certification exam. Microsoft, Cisco, VMware, Palo Alto Networks, none of these certification exams at the end of it stamp it and say, you now know everything there is to know about this topic, and no one is above you. You know everything. No, that's not what certification exams are. That's not what they do. That's not the point of a certification exam. That's not the objective of a certification exam. That's not what you would ever find in a certification exam. It's a starting point. It explains to an employer, especially, that you've worked hard to understand these fundamentals and you do have some basic knowledge on how to resolve some of these problems that you would run into. So because of that, your goal for most of us, our goal is to just earn the cert. Put the cert in our pocket, stick it on our resume, be able to show people that you have it. So for that reason, at least until July 31st, the much easier path, the much higher recommended path for you to go to earn that certification is to take the 501. It's a much smaller exam. It's a much more well-known exam. We all have many more materials available. It's sort of logical in why you would choose that one. But there's a number of people I've talked to that said, I don't care about that. I want to know the latest and greatest. I want to go through it. And it's going to be something that's going to take me a long amount of time. Great. 601 works perfect. Either way is fine. The real important part is that you get the certification. Pick the one that fits your philosophy the best and take that one. So that's the real key is knowing where you should go with those things. I think that, at least from my perspective, is find the one that fits your objective best and do that. Once you take the 501 or 601, you earn your Security Plus. It's exactly the same piece of paper. If you take the 501 and pass it, you get a paper that says Security Plus certified. If you take the 601 and pass it, they give you the same piece of paper. It says Security Plus certified. Doesn't matter. So you would have gone through having to learn a lot more on the 601, having to find more materials that aren't available to you than someone the 501 can find. And you do all of that. You study more than they studied. You finally go in and pass the exam. You get the same piece of paper. So you did a lot more work, turn exactly the same piece of paper. If that's for you, you do it. Makes sense to me. And for some of us, it is what we want to do. Maybe it is we want to learn those different topics. Great. But it's going to be harder. There's going to be more to learn. And at the end of the day, you earn exactly the same cert. It just depends on what your philosophy or what your objective is and what you're trying to do. Sometimes there's people that sent me emails that say, my employer has given me 30 days to earn this cert. If I don't earn this certification in 30 days, I'm fired. You need to go take the 501. Why would you take the 601? Why would you make it harder to do something that is all about just earning the cert and putting it in your pocket? So there's the two sides of the coin that you can go with. Both are completely valid. Neither one is better or worse than the other. There's been some people, they sent me a note that said, but wait, the 501 has been out longer, so it's actually harder to take. No, it's not how it works. Not how it works at all. So go with the one that makes sense for what you're trying to do. Figure out your objectives, and it'll be obvious to you which one you should take. And figure out which one makes sense for you. That is the important thing I think you should go with. Either one, though, is very good. The 501 exam is very good. Topics on 601 are very good. You can't go wrong with either one. This is the best scenario you can have because no matter which one you choose, it's all good stuff. So that's where I would go with. Think of it that way, and breaking those things out. Maybe that will give you some perspective on what makes sense for where you're going with this. It's not a very clear-cut answer. There's no single answer that works for everybody. Everybody has their own requirements for this. So figure out your requirements, find the one that fits best for you and go with it. There is no better or worse answer because of that. You just have to find the one that works best for you. There's always advantages and disadvantages. You just have to find the one that works best in your scenario and figure out that. No, as some people point out in the chat room, the employers don't specify the version of certification. And that's an important consideration. There is no version of the certification. There is no version of Security Plus. Security Plus simply is Security Plus. It doesn't matter which version of the exam you took. The exams have versions. The 501 is the version of the exam. It's the version of the questions you have to answer. The 601 is a version of the exam that you have to answer. But if you took the 401 6 years ago, took the 401 exam and you earned your Security Plus, then you updated it, you renewed it for another 3 years. And let's say you're coming up on that renewal. Let's say you renew it again for another 3 years. This whole time you've been Security Plus certified, and you will continue to be Security Plus certified for the next 3 years. But you took the 401. What doesn't matter? Your Security Plus that you upgraded twice is just as valid a Security Plus as someone who takes the 601 right now and passes the exam. It's exactly the same certification. And from an employer's perspective, that's all they care about. Exactly the same certification. And we mentioned this in an earlier study group. The only employers that ever seem to care, have ever cared that I've run into, which version of the exam you took, were employers that were hiring trainers. Well, of course, trainers usually have to take the version of the exam that they're training on. But not everybody else. No other employers care. All they want to know is Security Plus, check, you're good. Doesn't matter how you got it. Doesn't matter which version of the exam you took. Doesn't matter if you took it 10 years ago and you've renewed through the years. You're Security Plus certified. That's all they care about. So that's what you should care about too, if that's what you're trying to do. Pretty important. Can I talk more about simulations for those of us with limited IT experience? On the Security Plus exam, there's some simulation. The performance-based questions are not all simulations of a user interface or a firewall or something of that perspective. On the exam, they are giving you a scenario and you have to fit into that scenario or answer questions about security into that scenario. I give a number of these in my practice exams book for 501. So I give you a bunch of examples for where a particular security technology might fit, and you have to drag and drop or match those to the right place, or on the exam, probably a pull down menu to put the right security technologies in the right place on a map. What should go in front of the data center? What should go in front of the building, the front door of the building? What should go outside of the building? What should go inside of the data center? So there's all these things that you could drag and drop or use a pull-down menu to do. So it's not necessarily about simulations as much as it is applying what you know from the exam objectives to answer a question that is not necessarily in a multiple choice format. That's really the key. So as long as you're going through and you know all of the topics on the exam objectives, it really doesn't matter how they ask the question. You will be able to answer it. That's your focus. So, and I know I say this over and over and over and over and over again. If you know what's in the exam objectives, you're going to do fine on the exam. And it's very true because the exam stays very, very, very close to the exam objectives. Make sure you are familiar with what's on the exam objectives and you're going to do fine. It doesn't matter. It could be a multiple choice question, could be fill in the blank, could be matching, could be putting things in a particular order. Doesn't matter. As long as you know what's in the exam objectives, you're fine. You know, a lot of the 501 questions, for example, were about removing malware. There's a lot of questions on the exam about removing malware. What's the process? And if you look at the exam objective, the process is numbered. It didn't used to be that way, but now it's numbered. You know, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So you need to know what that order is so that when they ask you, now we need to remove this malware. Here's what we just finished. What do we do next? So you need to understand where in that process does that problem occur. That's a performance-based question. It doesn't have to be presented as multiple choice. It's just presented in a different way. So as long as you understand the topics, you're going to do fine. The exam itself really does stick to those objectives very, very, very closely. And since the 501 has been around for so long, we are pretty familiar at this point over what is available on that exam. And we're pretty comfortable with the topics, the comments, the things I do in the study groups, the questions I ask in the study groups, the content from my videos. They're all very close to what you would need to know for the exam. And I can recommend books for the exam. Go to my website. Under the pull-down menu for the 501 is a set of recommended study materials. That's the best place to go. And there's some books in there that may be good to have those pieces there. Also in the chat from Romania Fan TV, can you go over MAC address filtering? MAC addresses and filtering with MAC addresses, which are it's sometimes confusing in some of the sample questions I've seen regarding MAC address filtering. I try to be very clear about this in my videos, is that they are very useful for filtering out certain devices. Especially we use them very commonly on wireless networks to do MAC address filtering. But it's really more of an administrative tool to maybe keep devices we know from getting onto a section of the network that we control. It's not a security tool. It's easy to spoof a MAC address. It's easy to change the MAC address of your device to match a MAC address of a legitimate device, rendering a filter useless. It is definitely security through obscurity, which means if you know the security method used, it's very easy to circumvent. That's what that ultimately means. So MAC address filtering, very useful for managing what devices might be on a particular network that you control, but it's not a way to secure things. A lot of the similar things are like things like network address translation or NAT. NAT is not a security function. NAT is a way to administer IP addresses, or at least manage the use of IP addresses. Doesn't provide any security functionality at all. Same thing like being able to use a SAN or a NAS, where you've got this network attached storage. There's RAID redundancy in the drives. RAID is not a backup. Similar scenario. So MAC address filtering, not a security function. So just keep that in mind as you work through it. Thank you in the chat room to ER for your $4.99 donation. Thank you for the love there. I'll take your advice, ER. He says, Messer, he or she says, Messer, security plus vids and practice exams will definitely help you pass first take like I did. And I'm a terrible test taker. That's what ER said. That's not what I said, although I am a terrible test taker. Thank you for that. First, thank you for the donation. And secondly, thank you for the comments about the videos and practice exams. I like having those practice exams. They were an important addition to the 501 that I added. So you will see the practice exams appear for the 601 as well. I have to write them. So it'll be a couple months, probably, maybe more, maybe a few months, but they'll be out and available eventually here. They are an important thing that I want to get doing. So I'm running through all these videos right now. I have about 33 more videos to shoot. And out of 177 videos, we're doing pretty good. So right now we have 130 so videos online. I think this is the number. If I looked, I've got the numbers right here. So online, I have, of the 177 videos, I've got, 130 are online. And I've got a bunch more that are what they say in the can. They're waiting to be edited. And so those videos will be edited shortly and online. And in the meantime, for instance, today I'm not going to shoot video because I've spent hours talking to you. And so it would just sound horrible. So on this next video, you don't want that. But tomorrow I will shoot more. And the videos tomorrow will have, even more that are going into the editing bin. So what I usually will do is in the morning, I edit. In the afternoon, I shoot video. In the morning, I edit. In the afternoon, I shoot some video. So it's a constant cycle of these things. I'd shoot today, but I'm doing a live stream. But that's one of those. And working through them. Sean in the chat room, I have my A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Microsoft installing Windows 10 cert. I can't even get a help desk job. Well, you haven't gotten a help desk job yet. This is the thing about job hunting, and it is a frustrating, ridiculous, painful process is job hunting. It will kick you every day. It will beat you down and you will just hate it. And it's awful until you get a job offer. And then suddenly the world changes. It's just that one job offer. The thing is, you can't even pick and choose these things anymore. You have to be able to blast out your content to every hiring manager that you feel has a good fit for your specific knowledge base. So that's important. Josh says, took 1.5 years and 13 applications before getting in. That's an incredibly small number. There have been people that we've talked to on Reddit that have sent 100 applications before they got their first job, 200 applications before they got their first job. You have to put your paper out there if you're wanting anything to happen with this. But you also have to do it in the right way. I've got 2 videos that I added to my YouTube channel this year. I think it was in 2021, maybe the end of last year, which was 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. And that went so well, I did another one, 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. So those 2 videos have good tips on, do you even do a cover letter? What's in your cover letter? Have you customized the cover letter to match the requirements from the job posting? It's a huge opportunity you have because they're going to read it. Why aren't you taking advantage of that opportunity? And I even show you in the video how to take a job posting and how to build out a T-formatted cover letter very easily, customize it for what the employer is looking for, and sending that to them. And that's the important part, is customizing. In fact, you might even want to consider customizing your resume. And in those videos, I also talk about customizing your resume. And Lori is watching the replay of this and doing timestamps. Lori, make sure we put those 2 videos in the video description so that people can find them. The 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected and 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. Those are why you wouldn't do that. Is beyond me. I have people tell me all the time, I just send out what I got. I don't customize anything. It just goes out. Yeah, but what if they were talking about they need Linux knowledge, and like at the back end of your resume, you wrote that you had some Linux cert? Why wouldn't that go at the top? Why wouldn't that be the first thing they read if it's a Linux administration job or a Linux help desk or a Linux is a big deal to them? Of course you would do that. Go through those pieces. It makes a lot of sense. The employers are looking at these things. I've looked through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resumes when I was a hiring manager. So some of this is coming from my perspective of having done that. These videos were made from the perspective of having done that. Plus, I went and gathered information from tons of other resources. What are the biggest reasons a resume gets rejected? And I stuck that into this video, into both of those videos. So it's a good resource, I think, if you're somebody doing those videos. Jupiter 1000X Ice in the chat room. Thank you for the $5 donation and the love. I appreciate that. Who also writes, use livestrong.com. Never used them, but we'll take your recommendation. Or some of the resume builders. There are a number of websites out there that will build a resume. Some of them put their own content into your resume. They put their own URLs and QR codes into your resume. I don't recommend that. They work. Use cover letters. I did that a few days ago. Got hit up fast. See, that's the cover letter and nuances in the resume itself do make a difference. And I will tell you, and I mentioned this in the video, when these employers grab a resume, here's what they look at. They're usually recruiters, the first one to grab it. So they look at it and go, nope. They looked at 5 things. It took them about 10 seconds. They wanted to see where you were located. They want to see what your current job was. They want to see if you did have something you were trying to promote, is something you're very knowledgeable in. Oh, is he knowledgeable in things you were looking for? Is Microsoft in here anywhere? Is A+ in here anywhere? Is Linux in here anywhere? No? Okay. Or yes? They'll decide. They look at a description, maybe your last couple of jobs. They look at the time frame between the jobs, and then they decide right then, 10, 20 seconds later, whether that's a go or no go. That's a pretty quick overview. I have been in my last formal job working for another company. It's a long time ago, but I did. Not a long time ago. But I was interviewing with them. It was a startup. They had a brand new technology, security related. It was a brand new technology called a next generation firewall. It did not exist up to that point. It was just coming out. And so I handed them my resume. I wrote a book on Nmap. I was working at a security company already. I had these certifications in security technologies. I handed them the resume. A lot of those things I just mentioned were in the bottom half of the resume. The first half was my name, my objective. I think we know what your objective is. And then maybe it starts off with your education, which for me was so long ago. Does it really? And it was not a technical degree. So why was that the top half of my resume? And they kind of looked at least far enough to see what I did now. And then they put it down and started talking to me. So a huge opportunity missed. I still don't know how I got that job. I do know how I got the job. I had to have people call in afterwards. They didn't want to hire me. They were going to go with someone else. But they had already passed an offer to someone I'd worked with in the past. And he said, you should absolutely hire James. This is who you should hire. No question. Because I've worked with him before. And they took his advice. He somehow swayed them. I will be forever grateful for that. But he swayed them into hiring me, and I'm not sure they really wanted to. Now, once I got on board and they got to know me, like, oh, okay, well, of course, now makes perfect sense. But I did such a bad job with the resume. That's the important part. And Jupiter's right. You bring this up. The fourth element to getting a job in IT with no experience, knowing someone who works there. And he vouched for me. They said, well, we're hiring him and he feels very strongly about this. Let's do that. And we went with that. And I think I went out there. I went to California to interview, and I ended up doing another interview with what ultimately was my manager as a secondary interview. And that was the one where I don't think they were going to do the secondary interview, and they did bring me in. So who you know becomes important. It's about the people networking, not the network networking, not the TCP UDP networking. It's about who you know and what you know. It is an important part of this. If you have anybody on your LinkedIn, if you don't have a LinkedIn, you should have one. Put everybody you know on the LinkedIn. And because those connections become extremely important throughout your entire career, by the way. That's an important thing that you will always find. And I still have people on my LinkedIn. I ping every once in a while. Hey, how's it going? Haven't heard from you in a while. Hope things are well. That's it. That's all I got to do. And to see what they're doing, which was great because when I got on board with this startup and the startup took off and the technology went crazy and the company went public and we kept hiring engineers and we kept hiring technical people, I just went to my Rolodex and said, well, who can I hire? Who do I know? You need somebody in Chicago? Let me call this person I know in Chicago. Oh, you need somebody in Seattle? Let me send a note out to the person I know in Seattle. So I do that. Well, if anything comes from that, that's up to them. But like this just happened. Here's a great opportunity. This is blowing up. You may want to get on board. And you at least pass it off to them. It's another opportunity to be able to do that. So you should do that too. Have a good LinkedIn, have a good group of people, or maybe it's just people you know in your neighborhood, people you know at church, people your parents know, people your friends know. a friend of a friend is just as valuable a contact at a company as a friend. So these aren't people, you're not going to their birthday parties. This is not that level of relationship. These are professional relationships. These are acquaintances you know from the industry. You've gone to trade shows and you've met them. You've seen them at the local user group meetings. You worked with a friend of theirs at another company. These types of connections are so prevalent. You may be surprised at how many connections you have there that you never knew existed, but you'll never see them unless you get on LinkedIn and do that. I sound like a LinkedIn shill, but LinkedIn has a very important role to play in your career. You get to decide how much of a role. So I'm not, advantage. I'm not pushing you in any particular direction with that, but I find that it's so valuable that setting up a LinkedIn page and keeping that accurate and relevant is good. One of the things you'll notice if you ever send me a LinkedIn request to join my network, my personal James Messer network, that you're not going to get added unless we actually worked together. So my philosophy with LinkedIn is I only want those networks to be with people I have worked with, and that's it. So that's how I use LinkedIn. Some people just want to have as many people following them as possible. Well, it's not a social network to me. It's a professional network, and I want to limit the scope of that. So that's where I come from on the LinkedIn side. 501 or 601 in a month from now. Well, as soon as we're done here, you can rewind about 30 minutes where we went into ridiculous detail. But as they say in the chat room, shortcut, want the answer, it's 501. Why I chose 501, go back and you can find out all those different things. Figure out the details of that. Becomes important. If you are doing any job hunting right now, there's no single silver bullet that you can go after to get the job. It's a mixture of different things. It's a combination of things. How much labbing are you doing at home? If you're going for a security position, what does your security lab look like at home? Who's attacked your network? How did they attack it? If you plug into the internet and you set up a firewall and you put on that firewall an IPS, you're going to have tons of stories to tell in any job. You used to have stories to tell at the bar. Oh, you never believe who I saw trying to hack into my network today. Here's what they tried to do. And you'll have all of these reports you can run of what people are doing to attack your network. It's fantastic. So these are things that can be very useful in a certification, resume, interview, all these things. You can use this knowledge everywhere and be able to use those. I find that it's useful to have the stories in a interview, and you have to make your own stories. But if you don't have a job doing this, there's no stories. So where do I get the stories from? You make them yourself in your own lab. And it's very, very easy to do. In those videos of how to get a job in IT with no experience, in that video, I describe a number of different labs that you could set up, some for Microsoft, some for security, some for Linux, where you can do some of those. There's different things you can do, and you have great stories to tell when you walk into that interview, when you talk to somebody on the phone, or you're doing a Skype call for the interview. There's almost a whole set of doing an online call that we need to talk about. Nobody seems to have a microphone. You can buy a very inexpensive lapel mic for $10 on Amazon for $15. That would sound remarkably better than using the microphone across the room that's built into your laptop. That sounds like you're an echo chamber. Hi, I'm really interested in this job, even though you can't understand a word I'm saying, or it's really hard to listen to me. I really would like the job, like. Or would you like it to sound like this? I'm very interested in the job. I noticed you were talking a lot about Novell NetWare, and I'm a Novell NetWare expert. Whatever it is. Pick that really old technology. I'm doing a lot of connectivity to mainframes. But they can hear you so much better. It makes a difference when you're trying to connect to somebody. And an interview is a connection. You're trying to build a conversation, trying to get some type of connection between the two. It's hard because I used to go in interviews and there'd be pictures and they have a car and they have, there's a picture of the kids and you're able to at least get a conversation going. Oh, that's a nice car. Where'd you take that? Where's that here? Was that in town? Oh, you went out. Oh, you went to the races. Oh, you went to Indianapolis. Tell me, what was that like? Went to the brickyard. You did this. You went to Talladega. You got all these conversations you can have. I hear that's crazy. Talladega. Did you camp out? Did you go camp out in the middle? There's all these stories you can just talk about. That's what you want to be able to do, is really break through those different scenarios. It's hard to do on a video call. So it's almost important that you have the right lighting, and the right audio is almost as important as what you have done and what you know and what's on your resume, because they're going to remember and be able to connect with you a lot better if you sound good and you look good and they can see you. It becomes important. In the chat room, if you take 501 in June and you don't pass, should you retake the exam before it retires? Yeah, you should. You don't want to start over. The 601 contains half of the 501 content. So you'd lose half of what you were learning. Make sure if you're planning to take the 501, you pass the exam by July 31st, which means you probably want to take it at least before that in case you have to take it again. And remember, the retake policy from CompTIA says if you take the exam and you fail, you can retake it immediately. If you fail the second time, you have to wait. Is it a week or 14 days? They changed it recently. You have to wait a certain amount of time before you can take it again. I'm now typing feverishly into the CompTIA retake policy, which says first attempt, you take the second one immediately. The second attempt, it says, does it say, you have to wait before your third attempt, you have to wait 14 days, 2 weeks. So if you took your first one on July 20th and you fail, you take the next one July 21st and you fail, you can't take it again. So that's a problem. You got to time this out so that you have plenty of time to be able to take these exams to make that happen. Does the voucher on my site give the possibility for retake? It does not. The retake vouchers are only available directly from CompTIA. Cannot resell the retake vouchers, unfortunately. I mean, I guess I could, but I'd have to sell it to you for more than what they sell it for. It doesn't even make sense. So no, I don't. They don't give those out for me to resell to people at a discount, unfortunately. That's the key. Other questions in the chat room. Are my videos just enough to pass the 601? Well, currently no, because I'm not done with the 601 course. But even then, why would you only use videos for any certification exam? You should get a book. You should get hands-on. You should get videos. You should get Q&A. You know, those are your 4 things you should have to pass an exam. That's what you need. If you watch the first video of my 601 course, I tell you that. So watch the first video of my course, and I tell you those 4 things you should have to be able to pass an exam. Now, have people just used my videos and passed their exam? Yes, they have. I have designed them so that they cover every single topic from the exam objectives. But why would you do that when a book is going to teach you in a different way with different content, where a lab might be available? I have labs on my recommended study materials, so that's some great hands-on. So the labs are another good way to really get familiar with some hands-on. Do I sell Network Plus practice exams? Not yet. By the end of this year, you will see Network Plus practice exams. It doesn't make sense to write them now because the Network Plus exam is going to be updated at the end of the year. So that's the reason you don't see one there. What do you think is the most difficult / weirdest to remember content / acronym stuff in the 601? I don't think anything is really that hard to remember in the 601. mainly because they took out, if you're studying for the 501, there's that cryptography section, and you have to know all these asymmetric algorithms, the symmetric algorithms, the hashing algorithms. They have all these algorithms you have to know. None of those are in the 601. So there is some advantage to going to the 601. So they took out a lot of the crazy to remember stuff. There's more crazy to remember stuff in the 501 than there is the 601. So that's what that is from. People are asking, what is the book on the floor? What is that about? You came in late, or somebody asked if this was a green screen. And I said, no, it's not a green screen. I can't reach it. I can't get that far. So I threw a book over there. So that was me throwing a book to prove it's real. That's a real floor and a real cabinet with real books. Now I'm trapped. So that's what that was. That's the idea anyway. So another question, chat room. If you get my voucher and you fail the first try, can you reschedule the retake? You have to have another voucher. So no. If you want a voucher that's got a retake option, you have to go to CompTIA to get it. You can't get it from me or anyone else, I guess, unless they have a secret maybe deal with them. They don't have a secret deal with me, so I don't have one available, unfortunately. So that's it. So is the 601 material less in-depth? No, much more in-depth, much more content. They just got rid of some topics, but they put in twice as many. So let me take you through the stats, since those of you are really trying to get a context here. I'm going to bring up the list of Security Plus topics, if I can find it. Security Plus objectives, 601 objectives. I have listed out every objective in the 601 exam, and I have mapped 501 to 601. So I have a few of this. So the number of objectives in the 501 exam, 778 objectives are in the 501 exam, the way I count them, which is basically every bullet, is 778. The 601, 1,038. That's a much bigger exam. That's 133% larger in the 601. So a third larger. It was already enormous. It was already the biggest exam between the individual A pluses and the Network Plus. Now it's 30% bigger. On top of that, the number of objectives that are not found in the 501 is 529 objectives, or almost 51% of the 601 exam objectives are brand new. So they got rid of a lot of stuff they got rid of half of the 501, more than half, or a good chunk, I should say. But half of the objectives in the 601 are brand new. Never seen before, not on the 501. That's why I tell people, do you want to study 778 things, or do you want to study 1,038 things? That's the difference. I think the difficulty level between the things you're learning is comparable. There's just more of it. So that's why I tell people that. That's at least the numbers to have this available and have those things there. In the chat room, can I drop a recorded video of this live? It would be quite helpful. The replay of this is available immediately afterwards on YouTube. So it absolutely is recorded and available there for everything you're doing. How many objectives in the A+? Well, I don't think I have it in this spreadsheet, but I do have it. Since you're asking, so we know that the A+ or the Security Plus 501, 700 and something objectives. The 601 has over 1,000 objectives. On the A+, let me see if I can find it. I have to go back in time to find my 1001 comparison. I'm not even sure I have it in a way that I can break out for you. Number of topics on the 1001, 565. number of topics on the 1002, because remember with A+, you have to pass the 1001 and the 1002. On that one, the 1002 has 570 objectives. So the 2 certifications you have to take for A+ effectively is the same amount of content as 1 Security Plus certification. That's crazy. That's a lot. Network Plus, I think it's a single exam, so it's going to be a smaller number. Network Plus, if I look at that comparison, number of topics, 499. So there you go. That's kind of give you a perspective between all of these. The amount of work that people are doing to create their books, and the reason it's taking so long to get this material out is CompTIA creates the final exam objectives, and then just a couple months later, the test is available. So they kind of come out with the test immediately, but it takes a long time to write 30% new content, put it in a book form, edit the book content, have someone validate the content. And the same thing for videos. I'm creating 30% more videos for this, 177 videos just for that single course. That's a big course. So that's why it just takes so long. That's why it's so involved to go through that process and get all of that out. That's the real key. I said I had the 601 objectives on my website. I have a link that will take you to the CompTIA website for objectives at professormesser.com/objectives. Another question in the chat room. Do I know the reason for so many changes in objectives between the 501 and 601? Nope, I do not. They just did, and a lot of stuff they put in there, I still don't understand why they put it in there. A lot of emphasis in, there's a big emphasis or a huge section anyway in building out secure apps. You know, for the most part, secure applications, I don't need to know a lot about programming secure apps. People in IT don't program apps. It's important to understand high-level concepts, but they really dive into it. And I don't know why, but they do. So a lot of the topics, they just kind of took a single set of topics that you commonly found on the 501 and added a bunch of stuff to it. And I think they were trying to cover a lot of requests from a lot of different people and a lot of different requirements. And I think they just kind of put them all together, kind of not realizing just how enormous this finally ended up being. It just turned into a monster. And so now it's the size that it is. So I don't know why they did it that way. They just did it that way. It's one of those challenges to get that test done. And that's why I tell people, gosh, if you can take the 501, that's why. Because it's just a lot easier to get through and get done. That's important. Do I recommend taking the CASP after Security Plus? I recommend taking the certification that fits your professional goal. If employers are asking you to be CASP certified, then yes, you should take that certification. If you're going through a list of all the possible jobs you would like to have next, and none of those job postings mention the CASP, okay, there you go. I'm sure they mentioned something, though. Are they mentioning Linux? Are they mentioning Microsoft? Are they mentioning Azure? Are they mentioning AWS? Are they mentioning VMware? Palo Alto Networks? What are they mentioning? They're mentioning something, so find out what they're mentioning. Go with that. There is no single path. There is no single way to get to where we need to go. So you need to find the way that makes sense for you. That's the real key. Well, when will I post content related to the SSCP and CASP? Well, not anytime soon anyway. I don't really have any direct. I can't say that that's the number one on my list right now, are those two certs. There are probably others I would do first, but probably not on my list in the near future anyway. Probably not this calendar year. I'll say that. So my calendar year is booked. We have Security Plus, Network Plus is at the end of the year, and then What does 2022 bring? We'll find out. Have that there. Since we're here, I did take the number off the line, but there is a caller you've been holding for so long, and I've just not been going over there. The 504 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jeff. I'm from New Orleans.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for holding for so long.
Yeah, I wanted to. I'm actually working on the Network Plus, and so this is the first time I've actually been on the site, and I'm getting a little confused as far as because I went to the Socrative, and then the Socrative is it's like dormant. It's not really doing anything. It's telling me it's waiting for the next activity to begin. And then when I went and tried to get into the chat, everything was asking me for password here, and password here. So it was like taking me forever to get everything situated.
Well, unfortunately, today is our Security Plus study group. In the first hour, we were in the Socrative section. We were doing the Q&A with that, but we finished that up about an hour and a half ago. But now we're just sort of taking questions from the chat room and questions from the phone lines. And it's open lines, though. If you have a question or something specific about Network Plus or anything else, you're welcome to ask it.
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is, since I do not have a current job in IT yet, so when you pass the Network Plus or the Security Plus, how, is it possible to get enough CEs without actually working for a business where you can actually get continuing education credits from them?
You usually don't get CEs from your employer. That's not generally one of the options that CompTIA gives you when you're renewing your cert. But they do have a document that shows all of these different places you can earn CEUs, continuing education units, and they mix it up so that you have to do different ones. For instance, you can watch a webinar like this one, something online. You can watch an hour of that and you get one CEU. But if you've passed, say, your Network Plus, you have to earn, I think, 40 CEUs in a 3-year period. But they don't allow you to watch 40 online events. You can only watch 10 or whatever it is, 8 or 7. They have a number.
I think it might be 20.
Yeah, they greatly limit the number of things you can do in any one of these categories so that you have to go to different categories. Maybe with some categories you attend a trade show. Maybe you go to training class. Maybe you write an article. Maybe others you watch things online. Or, as we spoke of earlier in the study group, you take CompTIA's CertMaster CE class, which is an online 4 to 6 hour event that you do. You're doing it at your pace. And that will renew you another 3 years. So there's lots of different ways to do this.
Okay.
I have a video on my YouTube channel, which is how to renew your A+ Network Plus or Security Plus certification in just a few hours. And I go through not just how to do it in just a few hours. I talk about all of the different ways you can renew, most of the ways you can renew, and the advantages and disadvantages for doing that. Because you could take your Security Plus and pass that, and that will renew your Network Plus. You don't have to do anything else. So I guess it really depends on what you're going to be doing over the next 3 years and what the most or easiest path will be for you to renew that cert.
Okay. And I was wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit, if you could just go over port forwarding a little.
Sure. If you're doing Network Plus, then you've absolutely run into these questions about port forwarding and how it works. And if you do anything for the gamers out there who are listening, you're very familiar with this part. Now, if you have an internet connection at home, you most likely have either a device from your internet service provider or you've bought your own wireless router, which is really a firewall. These devices are firewalls. We don't commonly call them firewalls. We commonly call them routers or wireless routers, but they are fundamentally also, along with being wireless access points and routers, they are firewalls inside of them. And because of that, you can be on the inside of your network. You can be at home with your laptop and your televisions and all the internet connected devices that you're using. And you can be safe. Nobody from the internet can come through your firewall into your internal network. That's the point of having that firewall there. And that's fantastic. That's what we want. We want to keep everybody on the internet out, but it still allow us to talk to the internet, but keep them from coming back into my network, which is exactly what those firewalls do. But there will be times when maybe you do want people to come through that firewall. You would like to poke a hole in that firewall, just a little pinhole, to allow certain types of traffic through the firewall to be able to interact with devices you might have on the inside of your network. I mentioned gamers because that's a very good use case on a home-based network. But let's say you want people, let's say you're setting up your own Minecraft server. You've got the server running. It's running on a machine that's in your internal network. And now you want people to be able to connect to your Minecraft server, but they can't because you have a firewall. And the firewall is not going to allow them to connect to the Minecraft server that you've set up. So one of the things you can configure on your router, on your firewall, is a port forward, which says if anybody from the outside hits my firewall on this particular port number, you get to decide what that is. Maybe it's port number 777. If anybody hits this port 777, instead of blocking them, send them to the inside of my network, but to my Minecraft server so that they can get through my firewall, through that little pinhole. They can be port forwarded through my firewall onto the Minecraft server. And now everybody can be on my server and we can all play Minecraft together. And it works the same way. We can maybe have a file server, maybe you have a video server, maybe you have a web server. It's the same idea, but that's at least a very common use case to be able to create a port forward in your device, which is really effectively a static NAT, a network address translation. It's just a more palatable way to say it is that it's a port forward. And it forwards that port. And if you look at the documentation for Minecraft, for all of these different, for Xbox, for all these different services, they will even show you for your particular router, go to this section, go to port forward, and here's what you type in. And it will show you exactly what you have to put in there. Very common way to connect in and have people be able to get through your firewall, but manage what they can go to once they do get through your firewall, because you don't want them to go everywhere. But as I say that, you are allowing people into a private network. You may be concerned that if that particular software you're connecting them to, what if suddenly we find that that this particular Minecraft server has a vulnerability that people could take advantage of, and they can hop off of that server into other places in my network. Well, now having a port forward actually makes your network less secure. So there are advantages and disadvantages for doing that, but you have to manage it, and you would set it up on your router.
Okay. Yeah, the way you just explained it makes it a whole lot easier to understand, because I was trying to understand it from out of the book, and the book was confusing me to all heck.
This is one of those that I think if you set up this is important for you. You need to set up a Minecraft server. You need to have somebody outside of your home connect to that Minecraft server and see if you can set up the port forward properly. And there's a perfect lab for you to do that will really get that topic solidified in your brain.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the call. Thanks for holding.
All right. You have a good one.
I think whenever you're in the process of trying to work through some of these challenging topics, and even with things like Security Plus, we talk a lot in Security Plus about digital signatures. We talk about encryption. Do you want to try encryption? My PGP key is public. If you wanted to send me an encrypted message or a digitally signed message to james@professormesser.com, you'll find my PGP key is out on the public PGP key servers. You can send me an encrypted message, see if I can read it. And if I can read it, I'll go find your key and send you a message back. Or you can attach your key to the message, and I'll send you a message back. And you'll see if you can retrieve that, decrypt it, and see what I send back to you. So I'm more than happy to play that game. Try it out. Whenever you get your CEUs from me, The message I send you that says this certifies you watch this, they're all digitally signed, and it's a PGP digital signature. So if you receive one of those from me, get your copy of PGP installed, pull up that email message, see if you can verify the digital signature. So it's another way to work through sort of a hands-on, how can I do this? How can I get more hands-on or really get some of these topics and bring them down into my brain so I can understand what's going on? It is a great way to do more and more hands-on with these technologies. You'll be doing lots of hands-on once you get that security job, but getting into the interview and having a conversation where somebody says, well, tell me what you've done with this. Oh, well, let me tell you about the message I sent with PGP, how I made my own key, the process you go through to make the key, where I stored the key. And if you want to send me a message, here's my email address. It's on a key server, and we can send PGP information, PGP encrypted messages back and forth. So that's it. I think that's the real key, is you having done it once or twice brings a level of knowledge you just don't get from a video or a book or anything else. It's something about it's the tactile hitting of the keyboard, seeing it on the screen. There's something about the way the synapses fire in your brain that's different than watching a video, which is still valuable. It's different than reading a book, which is also valuable. But each one of those teaches you in a different way. It's firing different synapses with a video. It's different synapses with a book. It's difficult to describe, but that's how I perceive it when I'm using and learning in these different ways. So that may be an idea to do this. In the chat room, hi, new to IT. Do I have to do CompTIA A Plus before doing Security Plus? You do not. There are no formal prerequisites. You can take Security Plus as your first exam if you would like. If you are someone who's working to get into the U.S. federal government, for example, they love it when you have Security Plus. So a number of people that come to my site take Security Plus as their very first IT certification. I'm not sure if that's really the best way to do it, but they do it that way. Sometimes, though, you may find if you're new into IT and you're still looking for that first help desk job, I really recommend you go look at what help desk jobs are posting out there for jobs and see what they're asking for. And if you look through 20 job postings for help desk and none of them mention Security Plus, probably shouldn't start with Security Plus. Probably should start with what they say you should start with and being able to have those there. Network Plus versus CCNA. We talked a little bit about this earlier, is that CCNA is not an entry-level certification. Network Plus is an entry-level certification. I highly recommend going through Network Plus first so that when you jump into CCNA, you can concentrate on the Cisco-related content and not so much on understanding, oh, what does spanning tree do again? That's an odd word, spanning tree. Well, you've already learned all that. You've already gone through the spanning tree story and why spanning tree exists. When you finally get to CCNA, you can concentrate on configuring spanning tree rather than just even understanding what the heck it's doing. So that's always a good one to go through. So I always recommend Network Plus first, but there are some people that they don't want to do Network Plus. They want to skip over it. Just know that when you get to CCNA, you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage. You're going to have to spend more time on the fundamentals. You're going to have to read a lot more. You're going to have to effectively learn Network Plus while you're learning your CCNA. So you're kind of doing twice as much work as you probably should be doing at that point. But some people do that. For better or worse, they do that. And in fact, I know the Cisco people will disagree with me and often do, and they're wrong, but there are topics on Network Plus that are not covered in the CCNA. So there are things you're going to learn in Network Plus that Cisco will not teach you in their first certification exam because you can't. Networking is just too big. You could spend your entire career in networking and still not know everything. It's just big. It's enormous. So don't worry so much about which one to do first. Find out what employers want. As I mentioned earlier, help desk isn't going to hire you if you've got, or they're probably not going to look for a CCNA. Help desk is going to look for Network Plus. So it would be good to show up with the credentials they want you to have rather than credentials that someone else told you should have, including me. That's why I don't tell you which credentials you should go get. I tell you to go get the ones an employer wants you to get, because I think that's what most of us are trying to do. Now, I realize there are people studying for these certifications that some of them won't even go take the exam. They're simply studying for the certification to learn the knowledge that process brings, which is perfectly reasonable. There are some people that are just going through the process to earn their certification for personal reasons, because they would just like to have the cert. Absolutely reasonable. But I think the majority of people that are going through this process are doing it to earn or get a job or get a better job. And that's where I want to focus what I'm doing. That's where I focus what I'm doing. When I build out a course, I'm doing it so that you can get a job or get a better job. So everything I'm doing is along those lines. So if you come to me and say, yeah, but I'm not planning to take the cert, what should I do? Well, do whatever you'd like. Do what makes sense for you. You don't have to take the exam if you don't want to. But I think most of the people here are trying to get that cert so they can have it in their pocket. They can put it on their resume. They can tout it on their CV. They can hand it to an employer and saying, I'm certified in this. It's a topic that really interests me. I've done some hands-on. I've got some good stories. I'd love to do it for you if you hire me. That's a good story. That's a good push. That's a good thing to tell an employer. And I think that's what most of the people coming to my site are working towards, is making that happen. And I want it to happen for you as well. Well, this brings us to the end of another study group. Can you believe we had all these messages in the first hour? We went through all the Q&A. We've done the second hour after show with questions from the chat room, questions from the phone lines. We could not do this without you. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your comments in the chat room. Thank you for, there's always an underground conversation going on behind the scenes that I don't even talk to, but everybody's really great about sharing their ideas and recommendations and things in there. If you aren't here live watching this as it goes by, it's a great thing to participate in. Often people can get their questions asked in the chat room without me even bringing these things up. So that's a great place to be. And if you're watching this in the replay, you're probably seeing some of that go by. It's a great resource. You should absolutely take advantage of that. And yes, I'll have to work on that new series that we've pretty much announced now, which is Wireshark. Not Wireshark, Minecraft. Minecraft in your house. How to set port forwards with Minecraft. Minecraft on a budget. Minecraft. We're not going to do any Minecraft videos. Sounds nice though, doesn't it? Don't forget, on my website, we've all your 601 materials. We're putting out new videos all the time. I think we put out about 20 videos in the last week. We've got all the vouchers. When you need a voucher, go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. Not only get your voucher, get my free exam hacks ebook just by buying a voucher. Love for you to get your hands on that. It's going to help you in the exam. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.